Part 99. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1016. A note of worshipping the mountain buckle only makes the gods and ghosts sad. In the eyes of everyone, Su Tong's bow was courteous and respectful, but they only waited for the moment when Su Tong bowed down. The one eye on the face of the Yuankai god in front of him suddenly rippled with huge ripples, as if a powerful shock wave hit the eye. The huge body of the Yuankai god trembled violently, and the huge pain caused him to howl in pain. The entire cave sky was violently turbulent in the sound of his wailing, and countless mountains and rivers exploded and turned into crushed vitality particles. Fortunately, it was in the cave world and it did not affect reality. Otherwise, this time, 100 miles around would have turned into a tragic place of death. Even gods cannot withstand such a violent impact when caught off guard, just like a human being can crush an ant to death with one hand, but cannot withstand an ant suddenly flying into the eye, not to mention that this is a highly poisonous creature. Poisonous ants. When Su Tong succeeded in striking, the pure yang sword was already in his hand, and thoughts burning with pure yang fire appeared between his eyebrows. An inch of time. The sword edge was waved, and wherever the sword blade crossed, the cave and sky split, revealing the real world. Time and space began to tear apart with the sword blade, and time seemed to have a fault at this moment. Time was cut open and divided into the past and the future. Su Tong glanced over with his peripheral vision. Zhu Yang Zhenjun still had resentment and annoyance on his face. On the side, Gu Zhang looked sad and raised his hands before he could close them. The old man from Gasu has already raised the charcoal pen. Dichu and others still had excited and enthusiastic smiles on their faces. Then he looked towards the future. It is an ever-changing world with countless possibilities for the future. After he saw the vitality god being severely injured, his hands turned into giant dragons and attacked him. Countless vitality storms almost tore him apart. Sure enough, this sword cannot kill the Yuan Qi god. Su Tong was shocked when he saw the flash of the future clip. This time he directly burned 3 thoughts as a price, exerting the power of an inch of time to a level that shocked the world and made the ghosts and gods weep. But even so, he failed to achieve the effect of killing with one strike. It can be seen that this vitality god did not lie, he indeed has 2 brushes. At this time, the picture is still changing. At this time, Su Tong saw more fragments of the future. He saw that the pure yang sword in his hand split open the chest of the Yuan Qi god, but the Yuan Qi god turned into a huge furnace and swallowed him up in an instant. In the blurry future, Su Tong also saw a person walking towards him. It's Xiao Lishan. This guy is indeed here. Su Tong's heart sank slightly. Xiao Lishan had arrived a long time ago, but this guy was not in a hurry to take action. He seemed to be waiting for the chance to kill him with one blow. In the picture, Xiao Lishan raised the sword in his hand, united with the separated soul, struck with the sword, split his eyebrows, shattered all his thoughts, and killed himself with one sword. The pictures of the future are constantly changing, and ordinary people would already be frightened by these pictures of the future. But Su Tong was not affected at all, because he knew very well what he was doing. The past cannot be changed, the future cannot be trusted, and the only thing I can control is the present. Su Tong's eyes were blazing, and his heart was beating rapidly. In this stolen inch of time, he had the brilliance of a moment of enlightenment. Puff. The sword light struck the face of the Yuankai god, and a different layer of strange brilliance appeared on the blade burning with the light of pure yang. It was the special effect and sacred power carried by the pure yang sword. The power of the sacred weapon Saint Dia's spear and divine sword has been strengthened, and it has a serious injury effect on the gods. When the gods are injured by the sword energy, a sacred mark will be left. Once the mark reaches the 10th level, it will cause an irreversible mental critical attack on the gods. Immediately, there was a dark and ferocious cut on the face of the Yuankai god, and the blazing pure yang fire burned the soul of the resentful god. At the same time, a golden sacred mark appeared on the wound. Ah! The blade capable of severing the gods caused the gods of vitality to scream in pain. In the sight of Dichu and others, they only saw Su Tong bowing deeply to the god of vitality in front of him, and then there was a separation of time. By the time they came to their senses, Yuan Qi Shen had already suffered a heavy blow. Despicable, Dizhou didn't know what happened, but he knew with his toes that it must be Yang Hong who cheated and attacked the Yuan Qi Shen. He even wanted to rush forward and fight Yang Hong. However, he had just jumped up when a bolt of thunder and lightning struck through the air above his head. The bucket-thick purple sky thunder seemed to be waiting for him to strike down with precision the moment he rushed out of the hall. It turned out that Su Tong had already seen various possibilities from the scene in the future, and he had released the little fat man to wait for him one step ahead. The future is not trustworthy, because what happens in the next second can change at any time. As long as you grasp the present, you can decide what the future will be like. The sudden purple sky divine thunder fell down, catching Dizhou off guard, but fortunately with the blessing of the vitality god, Dichu's strength greatly increased. He waved his hands, and the power of the 5 elements gathered above his head, forming a rainbow bridge, and the figure stepped on it. On the rainbow bridge, the next moment was to quietly avoid this long-planned fatal blow. But when he turned around, he saw that Su Tong-gren had already rushed in front of the Yuan Qi god. 9 Immortals Divine Refining Formation. Su Tong didn't take action, but as soon as he did, there was a violent storm, smashing down all the skills in his hand. By watching the future scenes, Su Tong knew that the god of Yuan Qi was almost immortal. He could turn everything in the world into a part of himself. If he wanted to kill him, he had to be separated from the cave, so he decisively threw the 9 immortals at this moment. The god refining formation swallowed him up. The god of Yuan-Kai never dreamed that this little earthly immortal could actually master the power of an immortal. He was caught off guard and was hit dizzy by Su Tong's punches. The 9 immortals refining god appeared, intending to engulf the Yuan Qi god. Yang Hong. When Dizhou saw this, he used the big hand seal of vitality and slapped Su Tong, but at this time true Lord Zhu Yang had already come to kill him. Facing Dichu's vitality hand seal, Zhu Yang Zhenjun was not afraid at all. With one punch, the huge masculine energy shattered Dichu's vitality hand seal. If you want to touch my brother, you must pass my level first. Zhu Yang Zhenjun jumped forward. The huge masculine energy on his body was like a burning fireball. When Dizhou saw this, he couldn't help but cursed, "Go Sheng, don't seek death." But, it was you who barked "Go Sheng" too. Zhu Yang Zhenjun rushed down with a cold face, and his fists and palms were like heavy rain, hitting Dizhou. Just as the two were fighting desperately, the Yuan Qi Shen, whose head was smashed and covered, was finally awakened by the sense of urgency brought by the 9 immortals refining formation. The one eye opened, and after gazing at the surroundings of the god refining formation, it seemed that it suddenly discovered that the formation seemed incomplete. There was actually a large hole at the top of the formation. He immediately roared and turned all the surrounding mountains, rivers into gravel-like vitality, pouring into his body. And those martial arts people who had been blessed by the Yuan Qi god suddenly found that their flesh and blood began to twist and split amidst the screams of the Yuan Qi god. The power that could originally split mountains and split seas, and reach for the stars and the moon, instantly vanished into nothing, along with their own flesh and blood, and even their souls. "Help! Help! Master! Master!" The screams were still in his throat, and in an instant, the man turned into a piece of gravel and floated in the air. Now the faces of the people in the world who were still shouting at Su Tong turned pale. They screamed and begged and rushed towards the ancient Tibetan monks. Even if they wanted to become monks, they did not want to become part of the Yuan-Kai god. But when the ancient Tibetan monk saw this, he could only silently recite his sin. It's not that he doesn't want to save, it's just that there is nothing he can do. There is no such thing as a good thing in this world. You think you are taking advantage and getting benefits. In fact, the prices of these things have already been marked behind your back. The power of the Yuan-Chi god was instilled into their flesh and blood, giving them powerful strength and taking their flesh and soul as their own. And all this had already become a foregone conclusion when they took the initiative to accept the Yuan-Chi god and surrendered to him. Gathering a large amount of vitality power, the vitality god's body began to grow rapidly. He opened his hands to cover the sky and the sun, trying to forcefully tear this formation apart. When Su Tong saw this, his face suddenly darkened, and he wanted to stop him, but faced the Yuan-Chi Shen who rushed out regardless. No matter how Su Tong used various methods, he could not stop him. After all, as long as you break out of the formation, the Yuan-Chi Shen can turn everything around you into Yuan-Chi and reabsorb it into your body, and any amount of damage will be restored to the original state. Amitabha, I am here to help His Holiness. Seeing this, the Guzang monk couldn't sit still. If Yang Hong lost, none of them would survive today. Guzang silently recited the Diamond Sutra, and a huge Buddha appeared behind him. He flew in front of the god of Yuan-Kai, transformed into a 10-foot-long golden body, and used Buddhist magical powers to forcibly suppress the god of Yuan-Kai. If I hear it, without being affected by color, sound, fragrance, or touch, Si Tuohan can think of it. The Buddha's light shines on the ninth heaven, and under the cover of the infinite Buddha kingdom, Guzang seems to be the incarnation of the Buddha, with his whole body covered by the golden Buddha's light. Boom! The weight of the Buddha's kingdom, Sumuru mustard seeds, are large enough to carry the worlds of gods, and small enough to hide in grains of sand. Infinitely heavy and infinitely large, even the huge body of the Yuan-Kai god was forcibly suppressed by the ancient Tibetan monk. You are all going to die. The Yuan-Chi god was completely angry at this time. He didn't expect that he had just arrived and was being hurt one after another. It is even more unimaginable that in this world, there are such people who are beyond the top and have stepped into the immortal gate. In addition to being angry, his heart became more and more manic. The physical body of Yuan-Chi god actually split apart, reorganized again, and turned into a 5-headed golden dragon. He opened his mouth and sprayed out the power of the 5 elements to destroy everything here. The terrifying elements of the 5 elements mixed into a terrifying rainbow light. Wherever it passed, even the 9 immortals' divine refining formation was trembling, almost being penetrated by this force. Fortunately, the 9 immortals' divine refining formation is worthy of its name after all, and has remained intact despite the Yuan-Kai god's crazy counterattack. It was just Su Tong's misery that the script notes in the props book were evaporating crazily at this moment. Seeing that this is not the way to go, the shortcomings of the 9 immortals' divine refining formation are too obvious, and it will take a lot of time to increase its power. However, the existence of the 9 immortals' divine refining formation has also isolated the connection between the Yuan-Chi god and the outside world, making it impossible for him to easily turn all things into Yuan-Chi to repair his body. Su Tong took a deep breath and summoned the red dragon golden crystal armor on his body. He no longer held any reservations and saw 15 thoughts flying from his eyebrows. Su Tong mobilized all his forces and swung the pure yang sword in his hand. The pure yang sword in his hand was as fast as lightning, continuously slashing at the body of the Yuan-Chi god. Swish, swish, swish. The huge body of the Yuan-Kai god was cut with more than 10 huge wounds by Su Tong in an instant. At the same time, after the sacred mark attached to the pure yang sword was collected 10 times, a golden light suddenly flashed, causing the Yuan-Kai god to his body stiffen suddenly. Although Yuan-Chi Shen is a god, facing Guzang and Su Tong, 2 people who have both stepped into the immortal sect, it suddenly feels very difficult. The most important thing is that he can't be supplemented here and will definitely be killed by the 2 of them. Seeing that he could not escape from the trap, the Yuan Qi Shen simply rooted his body into the formation. He actually tried to use his own Yuan Qi power to assimilate the power of the formation. I saw the god of vitality, turning the energy on his body into sharp tentacles, piercing into the surroundings of the formation. Countless energy particles were like Lego toys, forming a matrix-like plane, with only one huge pupil, indifferent. Staring at the incomplete formation of Su Tong and Gu Shui, do you still want to keep me? I will assimilate this formation and make it a part of me, and you will never get out alive. Under the angry roar of the Yuan Qi god, the four elements of earth, wind, water, and fire in the formation began to change, gradually transforming in the direction of Yuan Qi. Seeing this, Su Tong did not stop him. If the nine immortals refining formation could be cracked so easily, then it would be a shame for the name of this formation. In his opinion, the only drawback of the nine immortals refining formation is that it costs money. Looking at the evaporating numbers in the props book, Su Tong began to feel pain. He has never tried to maintain the nine immortals divine refining formation for such a long time. The little script points he had in hand naturally couldn't sustain such burning. Fortunately, he was not alone, but a team. When Su Tong shouted in the team channel that he needed script points, Gao Zhou, Lao Bai, and Chang Wogu all took out all the few remaining script points in their hands. But what really surprised Su Tong was that the mascot Li Bo actually took out the script in one breath. 3 million script points. This money was the dividend that Su Tong gave to Li Bo when he entered the script. He planned to use part of it to run his own shop and the other part to allow him to collect enough prop cards. From Volume 14, Chapter 24. The guy didn't have time to use it yet, so he kept the money. The 3 million script points were a big help to Su Tong. After all, the nine immortals divine refining formation is too expensive and is a completely bottomless hole. As time passed by, the power that had been assimilated by the Yuan Qi god began to become uncontrollable. It seems that after a certain point in time, the formation will undergo a qualitative change. A kind of terrifying terror began to resurrect in the formation. This change was completely unexpected by Su Tong and others, as well as Yuan Qi Shen. Ding! The nine immortals divine refining array has completed the foreplay and can enter the next stage. Do you want to continue? Ding! The nine immortals divine refining array is entering the next stage. Once entry is confirmed, the cost of maintaining it will increase exponentially. Faced with the prompt from the prop book, Su Tong rolled his eyes inwardly. I just finished foreplay and asked for an extra hour? How professional. Faced with this rude request, Su Tong certainly wanted it and decisively chose to continue. He also wanted to see what kind of capital the nine-bitch god refining formation had, and how dare they play the trick halfway through. Following Su Tong's choice, the aura of the entire formation suddenly began to undergo huge changes. Boom! I saw the huge electric snake slashing down like a divine sword, leaving a hideous wound directly on the body of the Yuan Kai god. The terrifying firestorm was like a divine pillar connecting heaven and earth, attacking with an aura that destroyed everything. The god of Yuan Qi also wants to absorb its power and transform it into a steady stream of Yuan Qi power to repair his own wounds. However, when he actually came into contact with this terrifying firestorm, he discovered that there was a completely destructive force in these firestorms. Not only was he unable to absorb it, but it also burned his soul. Now the Yuan Qi Shen was panicking. The power of this formation was suddenly not at the same level as before. For a while, I can refine immortals, gods, and heaven. A faint shout came from the formation, and the auras of the nine immortals standing in the formation became more and more terrifying. Even Su Tong's heart began to beat faster. He had a feeling that the shadows of these nine immortals seemed to be reviving. Even the nine immortals' cauldron in his hand began to become hot. If there was not a huge gap in the cauldron and the nine immortals' cauldron was incomplete, I am afraid that the cauldron would have begun to gather in it at this moment. A great power. Boom. The 9 immortals changed their postures in unison, and at this time, a chaotic energy began to surge in the 9 immortals' formation. What kind of formation is this? The pupils of the Yuan-Kai god trembled violently, and a strong uneasiness spread throughout his body in an instant. This was a power that even gods were afraid of. The original earth, wind, water, and fire disappeared. In the vast and chaotic world, a white light suddenly split the chaos into two. Also divided into two, there is the huge body of Yuan Qi Shen. The huge body collapsed suddenly, turning into countless vitality particles in mid-air and trying to reorganize. However, the body split into two by the white light could not be put back together. There seemed to be an invisible wall between them, completely separating them. Then one after another white light began to appear from the formation, as if there was an invisible palm holding a luminous pen, shuttling through the chaos. The white light flashing past was almost like cutting tofu, easily cut his body open again. The cut body was also blocked by an invisible force. Yuan Qi Shen desperately wanted to reorganize himself, but the force continued to cut, giving him unprecedented fear. This is the treasure of the gods, not the power you should have. Who are you? This is not our customized script at all. Who are you? The spirit god roared angrily. Whether it's mine or not has nothing to do with you. Su Tong stared at the Yuan Qi god. His body was continuously divided and became smaller and smaller. Gradually, the true form of the Yuan Qi god was exposed. It was a thought no bigger than a quail egg. At this moment, the weak vitality gathered around this thought, and although there were countless vitality around him, they could no longer be controlled by him. Your Majesty, what kind of power is this formation? It's so terrifying. It was not only the Yuan-Kai god who was frightened, but Guzang was also frightened by the power of this formation. Even gods can be killed so easily. He has only seen such formations in some remaining ancient books. It seems to be in the longer past, but there is no record of the specific era in the book. It only vaguely indicates that that era was the period of Emperor Shun's reign. Su Tong rolled his eyes at the Guzang monk. This is fate. Guzang looked at Su Tong with a puzzled expression. I saw Su Tong clasping his hands together, as if he had seen through life and death. Ba, 1.8 million yuan. He said, looking at his prop book. In just a moment, 1.8 million script points in his prop book had been evaporated. And it is rapidly evaporating at a rate of 5,000 script points per second. This speed of burning money made even Su Tong feel his scalp numb. What was even more frightening was that he had a strong premonition that this was not the final power of the 9 immortals refining formation. As time goes by, I believe that the power of the 9 immortals refining formation will become more and more powerful, but the premise is that you must have enough script points. Fortunately, Yuan Qi Shen could no longer hold on, and his thoughts were split into two under a ray of white light. Seeing this, Su Tong was not polite. He summoned the dragon talisman, wrapped up the thoughts of the Yuan-Kai god, rolled them up and threw them into the immortal furnace at the entrance of his hall. At this moment, a slight tearing sound suddenly sounded. Su Tong felt a chill in his heart and hurriedly dodged. At the same time, he swung out the pure yang sword in his hand and struck the sword behind him. Boom! The sword blades made a harsh friction sound, and the two ancient enemy weapons collided together again. You are finally willing to come out. Behind the piercing sword light, a sharp-edged face gradually became clear. It was Xiaolishan who had been waiting for a long time. Facing Su Tong's well-prepared counterattack, Xiaolishan didn't seem to be surprised at all, but the sword edge in his hand suddenly swung. A huge force directly knocked Su Tong away. At the same time, Xiaolishan's figure actually pounced directly on the Shalongfu that was pulled back in mid-air by Su Tong. Peach picking. Su Tong's pupils tightened. He didn't expect that he usually picked other people's peaches by himself, but today it was someone else's turn to pick his own. Surprised, Su Tong immediately said angrily, You pick peaches and you don't even say hello, are you polite? As he spoke, a thought flashed between his eyebrows, a pure yang thought burned, and he waved an inch of time towards Xiaolishan. However, facing the unfavorable inch of time, although Xiaolishan's body froze under the time gap, the sword edge in his hand reflected another strong light. The strong light formed a cone shape, covering the void in front of Su Tong. For a moment, Su Tong was surprised to find that his sword light seemed to be blocked by some kind of force within the light cone and dissipated without a trace. No trace. Su Tong didn't expect that his fatal blow would be resolved so easily by Xiaolishan, and he couldn't help but feel a storm in his heart. After Xiaolishan defused Su Tong's attack with one sword, he did not continue to fight with him. He grabbed half of the thoughts of Yuan Qishen and looked back at Su Tong. Your swordsmanship is still a little bit worse. You want to kill me next time. After that, Xiaolishan disappeared from Su Tong out of thin air. When Su Tong came back to his senses, only half of his thoughts were left in front of him. Seeing this, Su Tong was immediately dumbfounded, and hurriedly threw the other half of his thoughts into the immortal furnace, and then put away the 9 immortals cauldron. With a quick scan of his eyes, he found that Xiaolishan was at the bottom of the mountain, as if he had not gone up the mountain at all. But beside him, there was a naked figure holding onto him. It was Yeliki. As if he noticed Su Tong's gaze, Xiaolishan showed a sinister smile. After shaking the vitality furnace in his hand, he quickly left with Yeliki. Hiss. Are you taking advantage of me? Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1017. Along the way, Su Tong competed for credit, money, and territory. He only robbed others of his own. When had he been robbed by others? But retribution came today. I originally thought that Xiaolishan's attack must be to kill me, so I have always been wary of Xiaolishan. Once this guy attacks me, I will immediately call out my master's wife, and at the same time activate the Little King card to start the retrograde. The final skill of the series. Even if he is ready to spend all his money, he still has to prepare for Xiaolishan to never come back. However, Xiaolishan did not intend to fight with him directly. Instead, he snatched away the thoughts of the other half of the Yuan Qi god at the critical moment, and then left quickly. This feeling is like the feeling when Wukong prepared the turtle-style Qigong and charged up the ultimate move, but the person teleported and ran away. Are all today's villains so naive? Sure enough, it can only be used as a reference in the future. There are too many variables to trust at all. What a loss this time. Maybe, it's not a loss. Su Tong glanced at King Xiao's retreating back with a thoughtful look, then turned his eyes and focused on Dizhou. Xiaolishan came, but he didn't come. He ran away with Yeliki, and also took away half of the Vitality God's thoughts. And how could Dizhou be the opponent of true Lord Zhu Yang after losing the blessing of the Vitality God? In less than 10 moves, Zhu Yang Zhenjun hit him with the 9 Yang Vajra fist, causing him to vomit blood. His body fell to the ground crookedly like a kite with its string cut off. Before he could get up from the ground, Zhu Yang Zhenjun's big foot stepped on Dizhou's chest. At this moment, Dizhou stopped resisting and fell to the ground, looking helpless. As the saying goes, there is no greater grief than death. At the critical moment, Xiaolishan, instead of helping, instead added insult to injury, which made Dizhou deeply realize that the Yuankai divine sect had been abandoned by Xiaolishan. No, it should be said that it was Xiaolishan's deliberate result. He had been here a long time ago, but he couldn't bear it, just to let Yang Hong and Yuan Qishen fight hard. He hid in the dark and waited for a price to sell. This shows that Xiaolishan has regarded the Yuankai divine sect as an abandoned son from a very early stage. Now that the thought of Yuan Qi God coming has been taken away, it is impossible for him to come again in a short time. In this game of chess, Yuan Qi God sect has been eliminated. But that's very good. Master Dishi has been in charge till now. Is there anything else you want to say? Guzang walked up to Dijo with this expression on his face. If it had been a few days ago, Guzang might have spared Dichu's life. But now, he has established the Shaolin Temple. In order for the Shaolin Temple to become a Buddhist holy place in the future and survive forever, he cannot share the fate of Songshan Mountain, and the Yuankai divine sect cannot survive. Otherwise, the god of vitality may come again one day, and the trouble will be left to future generations. Dijo gave a bitter smile and said no more. What's there to say about the winner and the loser? If he were the winner this time, he would refine them into magic elixirs to help him practice. It's just that at this moment, Dijo still has something that he doesn't understand. He looked in the direction of the secret room in the apse. His eyes were full of confusion. Just now he saw clearly that when Xiaolishan took Yeliki away, Yeliki was naked. The fleshy bag gleaming under his crotch was not damaged at all. How is this going? The god of Yuan-Chi has not yet given a new divine furnace of Yuan-Chi. How did the prince activate the creation pool of Yuan-Chi? These doubts were like a mess entangled in Dichu's mind, making him unable to let go, and even made him feel like he was being fooled. When Su Tong saw this, he knew what Dijo was thinking. He walked forward and squatted beside Dijo, and whispered 5 words into Dichu's ear. The civet cat exchanges for the prince. Su Tong's voice was transmitted into a secret, and no one could hear it except him and Dichu. What? Dichu's pupils suddenly widened, and he opened his mouth wide to shout, but at this time Su Tong's hand had already gently covered his mouth, and Dichu's heart was immediately hit by a biting coldness. Feeling penetrated. It was like a black hole, quickly swallowing up Dichu's consciousness. Send the leader's soldiers to relieve him. Su Tong's voice was very soft, but the sword light that pierced Dichu's chest suddenly flashed out with a bright light, erasing Dichu's last consciousness. Then he stood up and clasped his hands together, Ba. This war has finally come to an end. But the price was also heavy. Almost none of the Jianghu sects who came to besiege the Yuankai divine sect survived. This incident was recorded in detail by the old man from Gasu. I believe it will be reported to the Jianghu and spread throughout the world in a short time. Su Tong came to the secret room and took out a corpse wearing eunuch clothes from the secret room. The head of the corpse had been smashed beyond recognition, and the original appearance could not be seen at all. Su Tong buried the body in a grove in Songshan Mountain and erected an unnamed tombstone for him, with 4 words lazily written on it. Take the first step. Guzang and others didn't understand why. Su Tong just smiled but did not explain. As for Dichu's body, Su Tong gave it to Gaozhou. After all, to Gaozhou, the physical body of a land god is no less than Hepburn taking off her clothes and standing in front of you. With this physical body, Gaozhou's strength can surely rank second in the team. As long as Gu Zibai didn't break through, and there was a real fight, with the corpse C tactics and this body, this guy was already invincible. Soon, news about the battle at Songshan spread in the world. The news that Yang Hong killed the evil god in the first battle and faced Xiaolishan with a sword once again refreshed everyone's understanding of the Xinwu prince's combat prowess. The whole world was in an uproar, and those who were still clamoring that King Xiao would break Yang Hong into pieces if he came out suddenly shut up. In addition to this news, regarding the outcome of the battle in Songshan, the entire world fell into unprecedented silence. Almost no one of the martial arts masters who went to seek revenge survived. The old man from Gasu wrote down the entire process, and used the name of his Jianghu Baixiaosheng and the ancestors of the Gasu family as a guarantee to confirm that the matter was absolutely true. This further proves that Yuankai Shenjiao is a cult. What's even more strange is that the Northern Barbarian Court actually changed its previous attitude and immediately issued a notice to eradicate and hunt down the Yuankai god sect, as if the matter of canonizing the Yuankai god was not done by them at all. There was another major event in the Northern Barbarian Court, which was Yeliki's ascension to the throne. Yeliki, who was brought back by Xiaolishan, officially became the new king of the northern barbarians with the support of ministers from all ethnic groups. The first thing Yellowkey did when he came to power was to promulgate a new policy and grant amnesty to the world. There's nothing strange about this. But the first thing Yellowkey did after taking office was to call together craftsmen from all over the country, and it was rumored that he was going to build a tomb. It is not unprecedented in the history books to start building a mausoleum as soon as he takes office, but the problem is that no one knows where the mausoleum is built and the whereabouts of these craftsmen. In the study room of the northern man's palace, the lights were brightly lit. The two figures sat face to face at the table. "Uncle, the craftsmen have already started work, but 3 months is too soon." Yellowkey, who had already put on his dragon robe, looked particularly reserved under the light. Tea was carefully served on Xiaolishan's table. Xiaolishan glanced at the tea, which was the jasmine tea he liked to drink, and then glanced at Yellowkey. Seeing that the child's appearance was more and more similar to his own when he was young, Xiaolishan's eyes gradually softened. "Are you still blaming me for not saving Dizhou and not helping the Yuankai divine sect?" Hearing this, Yellowkey did not respond. He just lowered his head silently and said in a small voice, "Master D is very good to me." It was a very short sentence, neither blaming nor asking, but it revealed a lot of meaning. Xiaolishan could only sigh. If there were no accidents, the Yuankai divine sect should have been your backer in the future, but it can't be done now. With an outsider like Yang Hong, the original chess game has been disrupted. There are great variables in the future. I can't tie you to death on this broken ship of the northern barbarians. Hearing this, Yellowkey's eyes widened with an incredulous expression, and he called the northern barbarians a broken ship. This sentence coming from the mouth of Xiaolishan, the backer of the northern barbarians, was too shocking. Seeing Yellowkey's horrified look, Xiaolishan was not surprised. Instead, he comforted him softly, "Don't think too much, Uncle will pave the way for you. No matter whether the sky falls or the earth collapses in the future, Uncle will definitely let you and you be together. Mom, stay alive." As he spoke, Xiaolishan stood up and held Yellowkey in his arms. "Although there is no Yuan-Chi divine sect, this time you got the help of the Yuan-Chi creation pool to reshape your body. Your qualifications are already far better than before. Taking advantage of this opportunity takes some time to practice as soon as possible." As Xiaolishan said this, he took out a box from his arms. The box was made of polished crystal and had 2 layers of talismans on it for sealing. Looking through the box, you can see something the size of a fingernail inside, as pure and flawless as a gem. As soon as Xiaolishan took out the box, the surrounding air immediately began to stir, as if the elements in the world were moving closer to the box. When Xiaolishan saw this, he just snorted coldly. The aura of the earth immortal suppressed the restless power around him. "When I refine this thing into a magical elixir, I can help you reach the sky. By then, there will be no place in the world that you can't go to. You will be the protagonist of this era. No matter Yang Hong or Su Lai, none of them will. I can't argue with you." Yellowkey stared blankly at the crystal clear thoughts in the box. He was so moved that tears welled up in his eyes. He didn't know what to say, so he could only hold Xiaolishan's waist tightly with both hands. "My child, don't cry. Whatever you lost today, my uncle will ask them to spit it out for you 10 times or 100 times tomorrow." Looking at Yellowkey's shoulders twitching in his arms, Xiaolishan comforted softly, but he couldn't see that the cheek stuck in his arms was almost crooked with a smile. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1018. While Xiaolishan was preparing for future movements, Su Tong was not idle either. They simply didn't leave and stayed at the Shaolin Temple. Su Fan was also taken to the Shaolin Temple. Although the food here was a bit sparse, As long as he stayed with Su Tong, Su Fan felt that he could have a good sleep and got used to the feeling in the mountains. Taking advantage of this opportunity to rest, Gu Zibai simply pulled the 3,000 soldiers from the Xinwu camp up the mountain and trained every day with the disciples of the Five Mountain Sword sect who had converted to Buddhism. Although the current Shaolin Temple does not have the reputation of Shaolin among martial arts schools in the world as it will in the future, these disciples from the Wu Sword sect are here to lay the foundation, and the Shaolin Temple has indeed embarked on the path of spreading Taoism through martial arts. The 3,000 soldiers of the Xinwu camp have indeed learned a lot from the Five Mountain Sword sect here. If you give them a little more time, let them grow up a step further. Even if they are not as terrifying as the Nightmare Cavalry, they will still be able to look down upon the world. In Su Tong's words, the current Shaolin Temple only needs a Bodhidharma. This Bodhidharma may or may not be a human being. To be precise, he is an opportunity. But who will take this opportunity is probably a story in another script. At this moment, Su Tong is sitting in the quiet room, gathering all the team members in the team channel for a meeting. Chang Wuhan's current status is enough to have access to a lot of intelligence and information that ordinary people cannot have access to. Even some of the orders were issued by him. Although this guy did not get the title of prince in name, this move of Civet Cat to prince completely changed his identity. Rebuild the Vitality battleship. Su Tong looked at the new message from Chang Wuju and fell into doubt for a moment. Judging from Xiao Lishan's various actions, Xiao Lishan not only gave up the Yuankai divine sect, but even wanted to further give up on the northern barbarians. What is this guy thinking, or what plan is he and Su Lai planning? The content of the script is completely different from the content of the script in hand. It seems that since the victory at Langshan, the direction of the plot has gone further and further away under his influence, and now it has completely deviated from the original track. This is both a good thing and a bad thing. The good side shows that there is no problem with his plan. The original game of chess has been completely disrupted by himself. This is probably something that Yuan Qishen and Shang Qingdao would never expect. But there is also a bad side, that is, the plot has become increasingly deviated, and the original information he had has completely lost its reference value. But overall, they still made money, and they made a lot of money. Xiao Lishan's love for Yeliki has long surpassed the concept of a nephew. I am afraid that his own son has never seen such an easy life. If Su Fan knew about Xiao Lishan's idea of using Yuan Qishen to help Yeliki reach the sky in one step, Su Fan would probably faint in the toilet from crying. They are also close relatives. If Su Laifan learned 1/10 of Xiao Lishan's skills, he would not take risks in the first place. You've made a lot of money this time. Su Tong was happy for Chang Wuju in the team channel. This guy took the prop card route. It was almost impossible to expect him to practice to the best level in the world. But this time Chang Wuju's plan was an unprecedented success. Su Tong split open the secret passage in the back hall with a sword and forced out half of Xiao Lishan's soul. When everyone's eyes were focused on him, a civet cat was exchanged for the prince. The vitality creation pool can reshape the physical body, and even Xiao Lishan can't even think of detecting anything wrong. Although Chang Wuju is not good at acting, he has been with Yeliki for so long and has already figured out Yeliki's character thoroughly, so it is not difficult to imitate him. If we were to talk about flaws, they would probably be Yeliki's small marks, such as handwriting, habits, and even his preference for eating. Su Tong had to give Chang Wuju a good makeup lesson in the team channel. These small habits are not worth mentioning in the eyes of many people, but in the eyes of those who have been with Yeliki all year round, there is no place for them. Done well, it may cause great alarm. Xiao Lishan is actually easy to deal with. After all, Yeliki is not always by his side, so Xiao Lishan doesn't particularly care about these small details. The danger lies with those around Yeliki. Fortunately, this problem is not a big problem. When Chang Wuju played the role of eunuch Chang, He had already sent away all these people around him. We have really made a profit this time. With your identity as the emperor as a cover, after we get rid of Xiaolishan, the entire northern barbarians will be ours. We need money, and we need credit and merit. I think how we play is not up to us. Gao Zhou was particularly excited. He had seen countless corpses and a huge corpse refining place. Just as Su Fan once said to Su Tong, the largest sect in the world is above this temple. To master the temple is to master the resources of the world. Don't be too happy too early. Xiaolishan and Su Lai, and behind them, there is Shangqing Dao. I have a hunch that they will take action soon. Lao Li, what's the latest news in Linen? Su Tong had to pour cold water on Gao Zhou. It seemed calm now, but there was already an undercurrent. If I had tricked Shang Sheng Zhenjun before, Shangqing Dao still didn't know who it was, but now I have done it, then it is self-evident who the murderer is. They have completely moved from behind the scenes to the stage. Su Tong estimates that next, they may be besieged by Shangqing Dao, Su Lai, and even the entire world. This is the price of replacing a chess player and coming to the stage. Boss, everything is normal here. Wu Ji has gone to the countryside, and the position of Generalissimo has also become vacant. Su Lai seems to have had nothing wrong with him during this period. He goes home every day to hold his children. Li Bo stayed in Linen Mansion, and many sparrows and pigeons could not escape his control. At the moment of intelligence, he was quite successful. But even so, there are still many blind spots that Li Bo cannot explore. For example, Li Bo tried many methods to sneak into Su Lai's mansion, no matter whether it was mice or wild cats. There seemed to be some kind of terrifying treasure in Su Lai's mansion, which he could not reach with his claws. Moreover, as long as there is news about Su Lai's residence, it is basically delivered by a special person, and it is very difficult to intercept it. It's not too much. Although there is nothing going on in Linen, the several prefectures in Tiangan have been in chaos recently. It seems that several prefects were beheaded by Su Lai. There are rumors that they did not raise enough food and wages, but I can't tell you the details. I can't find out. After listening to Li Bo's words, Su Tong did not force him to continue to inquire. In fact, to Su Tong, Li Bo was the team mascot. Li Bo was able to take down the Yuan Qi Shen this time because he took the greatest credit. Although he didn't do anything, the 3 million in funds gave Su Tong the confidence to take down the Yuan Qi Shen. Instruct Li Bo to be careful in Linen Mansion alone. If necessary, he can try to explore the direction of Xian Rending to see what has happened recently on the Shangqing Road. After the team meeting, Su Tong let them communicate among themselves. Of course, the main thing was that Gao Zhou, Gu Zibai, and Li Bo wanted to ask the Emperor Chang Wogu for money, martial arts skills, resources, etc. Su Tong will not participate in these issues. There were still a lot of elixirs last time. This time he plans to combine these elixirs with the half-thought of the Vitality God to refine another batch of elixirs. But just as Su Tong was preparing, his heart suddenly moved, and a strange feeling came over him. Su Tong's spirit perked up. Master is back. The Master took the Master and the old Tao to the netherworld this time. After such a long time, Su Tong thought that the Master would not come back until the end of the script world. Immediately, he didn't care about refining the elixir, and used the illusion to escape behind the gate. Master, Master, I miss you so much. As soon as Su Tong entered the door, he glanced left and right and found the old Taoist squatting at the door, looking at him with a smile. Master, I haven't seen you for a long time. Your cultivation level is really. When the old Taoist saw Su Tong, his eyes couldn't help but light up. Even though the old Taoist was not very powerful, in this script world, the words enlightened heavenly man were simply not enough. But one can imagine the qualifications of an experienced Taoist who was able to forcefully kick one foot into the door of enlightenment in the age of Dharma ending, when even great masters were rare. The old Taoist priest with venomous eyes noticed Su Tong's aura of returning to nature at a glance, and after a little thought, he concluded that Su Tong's strength had reached such a terrifying level. Thinking carefully about how Su Tong was just a small character like an ant in front of him at the beginning, but now he has become an existence that is beyond his reach, and the old Taoist priest felt sad in his heart. How about this time you went to the underworld and got what you wanted? Su Tong approached the old Taoist and asked. The old Taoist pinched his beard and looked at the thatched cottage he built outside the door, feeling reluctant to part with it. To gain is to lose, and to lose is to gain. But if we go away, I'm afraid it will be difficult to see each other again in the future. Hearing the words of the old Taoist priest, Su Tong's face was inevitably a little sad. Sure enough, the old Taoist priest would eventually leave him like the eldest princess. It's sad, but Su Tong still hopes in his heart that the old Taoist priest will get out. This place has trapped him for too long. He only hopes that when he gets out, he can leap into the sky like the eldest princess. Then when do you plan to leave and how? Like the eldest princess, do you also have to find a door? Su Tong asked. The old Taoist raised his fingers and calculated, don't worry, there is still one more chance. It doesn't matter if the door is closed or not. Su Tong thought about it, even if he stayed in the script world, it would not be difficult to reach the top with his experienced potential. He didn't ask the old Taoist what the opportunity was waiting for. After chatting with the old Taoist for a few more words, he pushed the door open and went to see the master and his master. I believe they would come back at this time and they should have something to talk to about themselves. Explain. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1019. Just as Su Tong thought, Master and the others came back in a hurry, as if they already knew what they had gained. When Su Tong sat down, after 3 cups of tea, Master Song started to stretch out his hands. Tong let's discuss whether the idea of the Vitality God can be discussed. Su Tong was stunned for a moment, and glanced at his master. Seeing his squinting expression as he drank tea, Su Tong walked out of the hall, reached out and grabbed the thought in the immortal furnace and put it on the table. Take it. Seeing Su Tong put the idea of Yuan Qi Shen on the table. For a moment, Master Song Lao's face was getting hot. It's not difficult to understand how precious this thing is, just think about it. Although the gods have countless thoughts, it is not easy to get the thought of a god. Especially for Su Tong at this stage, doing so is tantamount to giving up a good opportunity to improve his strength. Kid, you can think about it again. Seeing this, the master spoke softly. Shuigui was happy that Su Tong could take out the things so readily, but more importantly, he was sad. He hoped that his disciple could be more selfish. Don't think about it, Master, you would never take the initiative to speak to me like this, but now that you have spoken, it means that you need this thing more. Su Tong pushed half of the idea of Yuan Qi Shen in front of his master. Su Tong was never stingy, especially when it came to treating his own people, whether it was Chang Liuzhu, Gaozhou, Gu Zibai, or even Li Bo. Whether it is financial resources, material resources, or even the need to take risks on his own, he has no reservations about the people around him in this regard. When the master and master treat him, they are no different than family members. Su Tong would only feel happy if they could speak to him, as if his parents were protecting him from the wind and rain, and finally had the day to rely on his children. This is an achievement, a feeling that cannot be exchanged for any benefits. Now the master and master looked at each other, with only wry smiles on their faces. Fortunately, Shuigui is not the kind of pretentious person. He put away the half-thoughts of Yuan Qi Shen, I won't go around in circles with you. I took this thing, but we won't let you suffer. This is compensation for you in exchange. Shuigui took out a black book from his pocket and handed it to Su Tong. The book is very thin and feels light in the hand. It seemed as if there were no pages inside, but Su Tong felt a familiar power on it. I glanced at the book and found 3 words written on it: Book of Life and Death. Book of Life and Death. When he saw these 3 words, Su Tong's eyes straightened. Good guy, last time there was only 1 page, but this time the master stole the entire book for himself? As expected, it is better to be a master. He is cruel and doesn't talk much. He is never ambiguous when giving treasures. Su Tong held this book of life and death as if he had found a treasure. Master, this thing is not cheap, is it? Emperor Du is so generous this time. Shuigui smiled and said nothing when he heard this, and glanced at Mr. Song, who was sitting beside him drinking tea. Su Tong was so thoughtful that when he saw this, he realized it immediately and quickly picked up the teapot to refill the tea for his master. He thought that this book of life and death must have been obtained by his master, Mr. Song, with great effort. Su Tong thought for a moment, and if his prediction was correct, the master should have used the merit he had accumulated over these years to obtain it. Whether it was the immortal of fortune, the city god, or even the dragon king, although the merits obtained by the 2 of them were divided into 3 to 7, Master Song Lao still accumulated a large sum of merits in his hands. Apart from this, Su Tong couldn't think of any other way for the master to exchange for such a thing. This book of life and death is just a copy, with 7 pages in total. How you use it depends on you, Mr. Song said while holding tea. Su Tong nodded and threw the book of life and death into the prop book. Book of Life and Death, video. The god of the underworld has the power to check and modify the destiny, and has the power to judge and kill. Passive skill 1, Evil Town. As a copy of the Book of Life and Death, it can be integrated into your own luck and used as a souvenir. Note, although it has the ability to suppress all evils, the user may experience unknown symptoms over time, so use with caution. Passive skill 2, Unknown Person. Those who hold the Book of Life and Death will not reveal their own destiny, cannot check it unless it is the original book, and cannot change it unless it is the original book. Note, there are no names in the Book of Life and Death, and they are willing to be nameless ghosts in the underworld. Active skill 1, check. After consuming script points, you can check the records in the Book of Life and Death by name. Duration, 5 minutes. Cooling time, 7 days. Note, the greater the cause and effect on the person you are checking, the higher the script points you need to consume, and it comes with certain risks. Active skill 2, Life Repair. It can only be used after activating skill 1. Consuming a page of the Book of Life and Death can modify the opponent's fate. Note, those who practice fortune-telling are against the will of heaven, and there will be a high probability of bad luck, 3 disasters and 6 disasters. Active skill 3, Hook and Kill. Consume a page of the Book of Life and Death, write the name of the person in the Book of Life and Death, and use a cinnabar red pen to draw in. Curse, Destiny. During the killing calamity, one's own luck will collapse, and all causes and effects will be repaid in advance. The killing calamity is divided into 4 stages. Destiny killing brings all blessings, human killing is vicious, earth killing leads to no way out, and heaven killing has no solution. Duration, 7 days. Those who succeed in overcoming the tribulation will receive 1 compensation from the 7-kill official, while those who fail will be left with their souls scattered. After Su Tong read the entries in the Book of Life and Death, he couldn't help but be shocked. He didn't expect there to be such a terrifying and powerful weapon. If anyone offends him in the future, he only needs to write his name in the Book of Life and Death. This person, it's hard not to die. But these are not what Su Tong is excited about. What he was really happy about was that he could investigate his own life experience through the Book of Life and Death. Whose child was he, and what were his parents' names? In his memory, he only saw his mother making careful gestures to him through the mirror, but where were they? I have never found this information. The youngest has even isolated the old building behind the mental hospital from time and space. Even if I want to find him and ask him for information, I can't. Now that I have this book of life and death, I may have the opportunity to investigate. Putting aside the relationship between master and apprentice, I also made a profit this time just by relying on this book of life and death. Putting the book of life and death away, Su Tong raised his head and looked at his master and master, you got half a spirit thought this time, will it not be enough? Shuigui nodded, it's indeed not enough, so you still need to find a way. As long as you can capture more spiritual thoughts, Du Xiren's treasure house will have many treasures for you to exchange for. Then why does Emperor Du want to capture these thoughts of gods? What exactly does he want to do? As far as I know, a god of his level does not need to use the thoughts of gods to make elixirs at all, right? Su Tong threw out the doubts he had always had in his heart. Du Xiren is the ghost emperor of the 5 directions, and he is different from the other ghost emperors. The other ghost emperors of the 4 directions are all one and the same. Of the 2 ghost emperors, Du Xiren is the only one who serves as both the political commissar and the leader, with overwhelming power. He is the strongest among the 5 ghost emperors. To him, these divine thoughts were not worth mentioning at all. He didn't know why he put so much effort into collecting these divine thoughts. The master tapped his fingers lightly on the table. He seemed to have thought for a long time before he said, Qingshan Tower outside the mountain, you don't want to be a chess piece, but have you ever thought that there are people who don't want to play this game at all? The master's words reached this point, which made Master Song next to him very nervous. He stared at Shuigui and coughed slightly to remind him that he had talked too much. It's not that they don't want to say it, it's that there are some things they can't say that are too explicit. Being able to speak to this extent is already the limit of the master. Any more and trouble is coming. Su Tong could also feel the emotional pressure on his master when he said these words, and thought carefully for a moment. Does Du Xiren want to rebel? The moment this idea arose in Su Tong's mind, an unprecedented chill suddenly hit him from behind, as if a pair of invisible eyes penetrated time and space and looked towards him. Su Tong was so shocked that the hairs on his body could not help but stand up. He glanced back unconsciously, but saw that there was nothing behind him, so he calmed down. This feeling was very bad, and it made Su Tong feel like he was jumping out of the chessboard and entering a larger whirlpool. This is like a frog trapped at the bottom of a well. Although he can't see the outside world, he doesn't have to worry about being hunted by the raptor killers outside. Once you jump out of the chessboard, it seems that what is waiting for you may not be a beautiful world, but maybe a hunt and a trap. Ahem, don't think too much about these things for the time being. Just make peace with them as they come. But remember, no matter what time, your master and I will always stand by your side. It's enough. The master saw Su Tong's expression was very bad, so he opened his mouth to comfort him. Su Tong nodded, and when he was about to say something, the mistress in the kitchen had already walked up with the food. Seeing this, the master silently shook his head at Su Tong, and Su Tong tacitly shut his mouth. It was obvious that the master was still a little wary of his apprentice wife. After eating and drinking, Su Tong went to visit Mr. Mei again and looked at the wishing tree belonging to Chang Wuxiu. When I came to Songshan this time, I couldn't see Chang Wuhan, so he was taken away by Xiaolishan. The fruit on the wishing tree became more and more brilliant. I wonder what kind of prop cards can be produced inside. In addition to looking at the wishing tree, Su Tong also asked a lot about Yan Shu. Mr. Mei was quite happy. He chatted with Su Tong a lot about Yan Shu, and mentioned his first successor Yu Ji and Mai Hua Taoist. Among the 3 people he taught, Su Tong's attainments in Yan Shu were the lowest, but his starting point was the highest. With his innate Taoist foundation, he surpassed Yu Ji and Mai Hua Taoist. However, when it comes to attainments in Yan Shu, it is still Mai Hua Taoist who is the main one. It's just that this guy's palace is too deep. He took huge risks several times and changed his fate against the will of heaven. In the end, he escaped completely and even escaped from the shackles of the 3 realms and 5 elements. Although he did not achieve enlightenment and become an immortal, the final result is also a mystery. I always felt that Taoist Mai Hua was not dead, but I can no longer find his aura. However, since you have inherited the Mai Hua lineage, I am afraid that you will have the opportunity to meet him in the future. After all, in a sense you are his direct descendant. Mei Xian said to Su Tong. Meet. Su Tong raised his eyebrows slightly, feeling that it was better to say goodbye. He always felt as if he was about to be collected for debt when they met. At this time, Mei Xian suddenly remembered something. By the way, Taoist Mai Hua seemed to have said something about inheritance. Let me think about it. Mei Xian squinted her eyes, as if she was lost in distant memories. Su Tong waited for a long time, but saw no movement from Mei Xian. When he took a closer look, he discovered that Mei Xian had fallen asleep. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1020. After returning from the space between reality and reality, Su Tong sat in a quiet room, closed his eyes, and slowly let his thoughts go. It is understandable that Master and the others need the thoughts of gods to perform their feats. Besides, Master and the others never get it for free, and the book of life and death they exchanged for this time is also very important to them. Su Tong called out the props book and took out the book of life and death. There was a strong ominous aura on the yellowed paper above. Su Tong tried to write his name on it. He wanted to try to see if he could find information about his life experience from it. Ding. This review will cost 300,000 script points and 5 silver badges as a price. Do you want to continue? Continue. 300,000 script points and 5 silver badges. This price is not a small amount, but it is also worthy of his status as a land god. As the script points in the prop book evaporated, lines of clear handwriting began to appear on the book of life and death. Su Tong. Place of birth, El City, the divine capital. Age, 27 years old. 8 characters, Xin Wei Genyin Xin Wei Genyin. 5 elements, metal, earth, and wood metal, earth, metal, and wood. Orientation, west, central, west, east, central, west, east. Destiny, unknown. Lifespan, unknown. Father, prisoner, life or death unknown. Mother, Z, life or death unknown. Note, although there are traces in the world, if there is any doubt about the coming and going, you must investigate carefully. Su Tong looked at the answer he had spent 300,000 script points and 5 silver badges in exchange for, and suddenly felt like he had been cheated. Fortunately, although there is little information, there is still something after all. Prisoner? Z. These are the names of my parents. Su Tong's eyes flashed with suspicion for a moment. He didn't even have a last name. But then I thought about it and thought about the mysterious strength of the youngest and the magic stick. He had to wonder, maybe his parents' identity, like theirs, had the power to be invisible to the world. If this is the case, then his mother's ability to leave information in his memory can be explained. After all, the ability that the magic stick showed last time in the hospital is incredible even if he thinks back on it based on his current strength. Being able to control time at will is something that no one can do anymore. Not even an Earth immortal can do this to such a terrifying degree. At this time, Su Tong had to seriously consider the crazy words of the old magician. When I walk out from here, all the heavens will tremble, the heavens will suppress me, the earth will repel me, my one thought will extend to 108,000 realms, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas will shed tears, and my followers will be slaughtered. The earth, use thousands of creatures to make sacrifices for me. When I was in the lunatic asylum, the words of this mad stick sounded incomprehensible, but now that I think about it, I only really understood things like spiritual thoughts after practicing the Nirvana Sutra. But if the old stick's words are true, how terrifying will his strength be? You are my first sacrifice. I will use your blood to dye my murals red, and use your soul to compose a war song for me. Thinking of the roar the old magic stick made to him when he left, Su Tong would be surprised if he didn't murmur in his heart. It seems that I really need to think of ways to improve my strength as soon as possible. Su Tong didn't want to fall into the hands of this old magician. After all, he seemed to have never given him a good look in so many years. He put away the Book of Life and Death and planned to wait until the 7-day cooling period was over and try to write his parents' names in it to see if he could find some other clues. As for using this thing as a town object, Su Tong thought about it and decided not to do it. I used to be fearless if I didn't know, but now that my realm has improved, I feel more and more that this thing is evil. Moreover, my current luck is already in the form of Yinhu Panchen, a great success. Even if there are no town objects, few people can shake my luck. Thinking of this, Su Tong closed his eyes again and tried to break through the Nirvana Sutra to the 6th level. However, this time he obviously did not have such good luck. Su Tong sat in the quiet room for 3 days and finally gave up the idea of continuing to practice the Nirvana Sutra. It's not that he doesn't understand enough, but that if he wants to break through to the 6th level of the Nirvana Sutra, he must abandon all distracting thoughts and emotions. Su Tong cannot achieve the result of turning himself into a clay sculpture. After much deliberation, the best thing to do is to find a way as soon as possible to completely digest the talisman in the Great Sun Ruyi furnace. While Su Tong was thinking, he suddenly noticed something. When he raised his head, he saw that the hall behind him was filled with fragrance and 9 furry tails were spread out. Quack, quack, quack. As if on stimulants, 5 furry little guys emerged from the feathers of thunder and surrounded the entrance of the hall, shouting happily. These 5 licking dogs were so excited, it was obvious that Daya was about to leave seclusion. The demon fox giving birth to 9 tails is a sign of perfect cultivation, but it is still one step away from becoming a demon immortal. The missing step is called asking for a seal. When it comes to asking for a seal, people in the Northeast have heard of it. Why is the weasel blocking the road? I ask you, do I look like a human or an immortal? This is the most important step for spiritual beings who have practiced for thousands of years to achieve enlightenment and become immortals. If you say that he is a human being, he will be able to cultivate into a human being. If you say that he is like an immortal, he will be grateful to you for the rest of his life. This is successful, but also unlucky. When you meet a drunk man, you open your mouth and ask, "What do you think I look like?" The drunk man didn't even look at it, he just said, "I think you look like a..." The monster seeking the title has been suffering from bad luck for 8 lifetimes, and all his cultivation has been completely wiped out. Fortunately, Daya was guarded by Su Tong. Seeing that the girl was about to leave seclusion, Su Tong took out something from the prop book. As soon as this object came out, the surroundings were filled with light, and a special power enveloped the entire Shaolin temple. Now even Gozang was alarmed and hurried over to see what was going on. When he saw Su Tong walking out of the room, holding something like an imperial edict in his hand, he couldn't help but shine in his eyes. Yang Shen's decree. That's right, this thing is exactly the volume of Yang Shen's decree that he gave me when I met Mr. Venfan, the fortune immortal in the last script world, which can be regarded as repaying the cause and effect between myself and him. Mr. Wenfan is the last Yang Shen in the age of ending Dharma, and he is the righteous God who has been canonized by the court. Although there is no shadow of him in this era, this does not affect the legitimacy of Yang Shen's decree. Su Tong unfolded the decree, wrote Daya's name on it, and threw it into his hall. Suddenly golden light burst out, bursts of divine power overflowed from the decree, and the whole world was invisibly distorted with the golden light. As the sound of the conferment came from the decree, Dia, who had already left the hall, felt something in her heart. She jumped out of the hall. Her white fox body gradually transformed into a young girl in front of everyone. She was enchanting and naturally charming. Even people like Zhuyang Zhenjun and Su Fan, who have seen beauties all over the world, were also moved by the sight. Others asked for a title, but Su Tong directly used Yang Shen's decree to grant Dia a title. One can imagine the huge gap between this. Under the golden light, Dia lost all her demonic aura, and her charm became even more pure and shy. This time, Zhenjun Zhuyang and Su Fanchen were almost drooling. As soon as the divine light dissipated, Dia walked down barefoot in the air, flowers growing under her feet. Wherever she walked, the surrounding space began to distort, and pink flowers grew. She came straight to Su Tong and bowed deeply. "Thank you, Master, for making it possible." Dia's voice is like spring water, trickling, making people feel like drinking a bowl of sweet clear spring in the middle of summer. Even Su Tong couldn't help but get goosebumps. After taking a closer look, I felt that after being granted the title, this big girl officially entered the realm of demons and immortals, and her strength had undergone a qualitative change from before. I don't know exactly how strong it is, but this charming character is really unrivaled in the world. There are so many beauties in the world. The old man from Gasu held up the small notebook in his hand and looked a little crazy for a while. Not to mention Zhuyang Zhenjun and others, even Guzang Monk had to turn around quickly after taking a look at Dia, clasped his hands, shook his head and said, "Sin, Sin, Na Umitba." Dia finally became a fox fairy. Su Tong was supposed to congratulate her and then check what level this girl's strength could reach. But now I see that if Dia is not allowed to go back, the monks in the Shaolin temple will stop meditating. He immediately said hurriedly, "You go back to the hall first, and we will talk about the rest later. Follow the teachings of the master." Dia nodded, bowed slightly to everyone around him, and with that inadvertent nod, he almost drew out the souls of Zhuyang Zhenjun and others. After Dia turned into a white light and flew into the entrance of the hall, everyone was still staring at Dia's figure, looking reluctant to leave. Now the 5 black little licking dogs couldn't wait to pounce on Dia. They swooped under Dia's feet and circled around Dia's feet. Even Yun Xiang, who was lying on the incense burner, was particularly active today. When he got into Dia's arms, he rubbed her from side to side, but it made those 5 little licking dogs very angry. Ahem. Seeing that Zhuyang Zhenjun and Su Fan were still in a daze, Su Tong had to cough twice to bring them back to their senses. At this time, the 2 people came back to their senses, and their faces suddenly turned red. Zhuyang Zhenjun quickly turned his head and praised, "I didn't expect that there really is a fox fairy. This time I came out and it was also a big eye-opener." As Zhuyang Zhenjun said, he couldn't help but glance at the entrance of the hall behind Su Tong. "If I couldn't beat you, I would have snatched him away." It was not just Zhuyang Zhenjun who wanted to snatch it away. The eyes of the monks who were watching the excitement were all straight. They were all panting like cows and their faces were red. If it weren't for Yang Hong's reputation and being suppressed by Monk Guzang, if it were someone with less strength, they would probably start a fight at this time. Su Tong rolled his eyes and could tell that Zhuyang Zhenjun meant what he said. He curled his lips and said, "You can't beat me." As he spoke, he quickly used his pure yang qi to hide the entrance to the hall, thinking, "Sure enough, a vixen is a vixen. If I let her stay for a while longer, I'm afraid I will become a public enemy of Shaolin." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1021. Su Tong has been staying in the Shaolin Temple for a while. Without the Yuankai divine sect, the Shaolin Temple has monopolized the fortune of Songshan Mountain. Su Tong felt that his luck could be nourished here. If he stayed for a while, he might try to make a breakthrough. It just so happened that Chang Wogo sent him a swordsmanship book, saying that it was the swordsmanship passed down to him by Xiaolishan, and asked him to study it carefully. This swordsmanship book has no name and only contains 7 moves. Moreover, every move was extremely weird. After Su Tong thought about it carefully, he came to a conclusion: that's nonsense. It's not that swordsmanship is really rubbish. After this book of swordsmanship was thrown into the props book, the props book actually gave a dynamic cover, which shows that it is definitely an advanced swordsmanship. But the entries given in the prop booklet are very interesting. Incomplete, awaiting identification. In other words, this swordsmanship is not comprehensive, and it needs to be appraised before it can be used. After studying it carefully for a long time, I felt that there should be 2 reasons. The first reason is that I did not get Xiaolishan's approval and could not get the entry for this thing directly from the prop book. The second reason is that the sword technique itself is not complete, or Xiaolishan has not taught the core of the sword technique. So I spent a long time researching before I came up with nonsense results. Keep it for now, it's good to use as a reference. Songshan is a good place. Spring has only begun in April, and there is still half the time before the comet hits the moon in June. If used well, it should be able to improve the strength of all of them to another level. At least he could completely refine the huge talisman in the Great Sun Ruyi furnace. But if there is no accident, the accident will come. That day, Su Tong, Su Fan, Gao Zhou, Ji Zhou, and Gu Zibai were eating breakfast without saying a word. Old man Gasu suddenly noticed something, twitched his ears, and looked out the door. Su Tong took a look and saw a little beggar hiding outside the door blowing a whistle. Thinking about it, this little beggar should be the informant of old man Gasu. As expected, when old man Gasu saw what had happened, he walked out of the cafeteria and quickly returned, only to have a secret letter in his hand. Old man Gasu has intelligence networks all over the world, but if it is not an important matter, generally speaking, no one will take the initiative to send him information unless he needs to investigate it himself. Problem occurs. Old man Gasu frowned, obviously having read the above content, and there was a bit of sadness in his eyes. He handed the information to Su Tong. Su Tong opened it and took a look. His face suddenly became gloomy, and even the temperature in your room dropped to the freezing point. Seeing this, Gao Zhou and others hurriedly took it over to take a look. The content is very simple. Su Tong asked the northern barbarians for the land of 8 states. During the handover, the northern barbarians slaughtered these places cleanly. For a time, the city was filled with corpses and broken walls. There was not even a single living person in a village, a town, a city, or a state. After seeing the above information, everyone was filled with anger. It was too cruel. Is Xiaolishan crazy? In the land of 8 states, the 26 human demons did not dare to do this. Xiaolishan is like this, isn't he afraid of heaven's revenge? Even if Tiangan didn't retaliate, how could Yang Hong sit back and watch? How long had it been since the sword hit the capital? Or does Xiaolishan want to provoke Su Tong in this way? But this is also unreasonable. With Xiaolishan's temperament, he definitely cannot do such a behavior that damages his reputation. Ding. Main Mission 2, Revenge. Main Mission 2, Revenge. Mission description: the people of the 8 states are dead and injured, and their blood debts have been repaid with blood. Your anger will drag the entire world into a war, and the final chess piece of the gods will also be revealed at this moment. Mission requirements: defeat more than 7 large northern barbarian clans and avenge the people of the 8 states. Task time: 30 days. Failure penalty. Note: killing is a shortcut to please the gods. The long-lost mission prompt came, which made Su Tong frown, and a bad feeling came into his heart. but before he could think about it, everyone who read the information started to curse. Asshole, General, let me take people to kill all these beasts. Ge Zhou was so angry that he wanted to take his 3,000 brothers with him immediately and fight back to Zhongdu. Compared with the old Yashao at the beginning, Ge Zhou is completely transformed now. Not only has his strength changed, but his character has also undergone a huge change. Su Tong did not speak, but waved his hand, indicating for Ge Zhou to sit down first. He looked at Zhenjun Zhu Yang and others aside. It seems I'm leaving. Zhu Yang, Zhenjun and old Mangasu looked at each other and nodded. Without being pretentious, they stood up and served a glass of plain wine. Goodbye today, the days ahead are long. Brother Yang, I wish you success soon. As the saying goes, it's all about the rivers and lakes. By the same token, when things rise to the national level, people like them should not continue to participate. The pursuits of these two sides are completely different from each other. They occasionally cross, but in the end they are destined to part ways. Su Tong nodded, drank a glass of plain wine, stood up, and threw the wine glass in his hand to the ground. Snapped. The wine glass shattered. Ge Zhou and others stood up one after another. Su Tong's eyes showed a hint of mania and anger that could not be suppressed. Ge Zhou, call the brothers, let's go get revenge. The soldiers who were still practicing gathered together as quickly as possible. Su Tong put on a bright red cloak and red dragon gold crystal armor. Facing the cool breeze in the mountains, he walked to the forefront of the team and waved his hand. Let's go and take revenge. Revenge. The blood massacre in the 8 states and the mountain of corpses were piled high. The news had spread to the 3 armies. At one moment, 3,000 soldiers roared in unison. As Su Tong waved his big hand, the horses clattered and their hooves galloped. The entire team was like a roaring tiger. Run down the mountain. Looking at the retreating figures of Su Tong and others, old Mangasu took out his notebook, thought for a moment, and concluded his trip to the world in the notebook. The general comes down from the mountain, his blood-stained clothes are full of hatred, and he has 3,000 golden armors. The barbaric evil has been brave enough to return. He, the writing is not bad. After the old Mangasu finished writing, he heard someone praising him behind him. When he looked, he saw that it was Su Fan, and he couldn't help but be startled. You didn't leave. Su Fan shook his head. I'm not going to fight, so why go? Yes, Su Tong led his troops out this time to avenge the people of the 8 prefectures. He, a loser, followed behind, waving flags and shouting seemed redundant. Instead of doing this, it would be safer to hide in the Shaolin Temple and wait and see what happens. Anyway, with the divine monk Gu Zhang here, based on his relationship with Yang Hong, who can touch him? The old man from Gasu was also stunned when he heard this. He looked at Su Fan with his deep eyes. They say that Su Lai has no virtue and is a dandy. Today, it seems that I am blind. As he was about to pick up his pen, Su Fan quickly stopped him, fearing that the old man from Gasu would betray him completely with one stroke of his pen. No restraint. Why didn't you tell us about this in advance when the northern barbarians massacred 8 states? On the way, Gu Zibai expressed doubts in the team channel. Ordinarily, how could Lao Chang, as the emperor of the northern barbarians, not know about such a big matter, but no information was revealed at all. This inevitably made Lao Bai and Gao Zhou start to worry about Chang Wogu's safety. Facing the inquiry, it took a long time before I heard Chang Liuji's voice coming out in the team channel. I was arranged by Xiao Lishan to build a chariot. I don't know anything about what happened in the court. If possible, you can try Xiao Lishan's attitude. This incident is too sudden. I feel that we have begun to enter the trap planned by the gods. At this time Su Tong spoke. Su Tong's eyes flashed with confusion. According to the original direction of the script, the core of this game lies in Su Lai and Xiao Lishan. If 2 dragons don't meet each other, one of them will die if they meet. Therefore, Xiaolishan and Su Lai have always avoided this day. The two of them have been waiting for the day when the comet hits the moon and the world's fate is in chaos, before they take action to resist and get rid of the control of the gods behind them. But now, with the addition of himself as a variable, the development of the plot has been led further and further to the side. Especially with the early elimination of Yuan Kai-shen, people in Shangqingdao may no longer be able to sit still. Even Su Tong has begun to suspect that this mission is the little trick the person behind Xian Rending is doing. The purpose is to promote certain conditions as quickly as possible and achieve their goals. But what is the purpose of the pure path? These gods come to these time points to change the world here. What do they want to gain? Under many doubts, Su Tong had to be cautious. Pulling out the prop book, Su Tong took another look at the mission and noticed the line of small words below the mission: killing is the shortcut to please the gods. Seeing this line of small words, Su Tong frowned, and finally he seemed to have figured it out. Whatever you want, you like playing chess, right? I like to flip the table. Suddenly, Su Tong already had a bold idea in his mind. Old Bai! Su Tong shouted in the team channel. Gu Zibai immediately stepped forward and looked at Su Tong. This main mission is left to you. Give it to me. Gu Zibai was also startled, not knowing what Su Tong was doing when he suddenly sang this song. Yes, just take the team and stroll around slowly. Su Tong didn't point out anything clearly. Anyway, the mission lasted for 30 days, so just make some noise from time to time. Gu Zibai nodded to express his understanding. After Su Tong handed over the responsibility of leading the troops to Gu Zibai, he summoned Thunder, took Li Bo with him, and quickly flew towards the north. Thunder's speed is very fast, and they are already in the northern barbarian territory, so it won't take long to reach Zhongdu city. On the way, news came from Chang Wogu's side. Boss, it's strange that Xiaolishan did not order the massacre of the 8 states. The people below came to report that you forcibly plundered the 8 states, which caused great dissatisfaction among the major tribes of the northern barbarians. They killed the tribesmen and formed a coalition army to start the massacre privately. The northern barbarians are more like a gathering of tribes than a dynasty. The 4 royal palaces of the south courtyard, the north courtyard prince's palace, the Yishi Palace, and the 11 Princes' Palace each control a large tribe. That is, the 5th Academy Department, the 6th Academy Department, the Yurum Department, and the 6th Department of 11. Originally, Xiaolishan could suppress the entire northern barbarians, but recently there have been more and more voices of dissatisfaction with Xiaolishan. In particular, the Yuankai divine sect was destroyed by Su Tong, but Xiaolishan did not directly attack Su Tong. This incident has actually deeply affected Xiaolishan's prestige. So much so that many people in the northern barbarians are now saying that Xiaolishan's strength is far inferior to that of Yang Hong. I feel like something is wrong. What Xiaolishan meant last time was that he might abandon Baman at any time. I couldn't understand it at first, but now, I always feel that Baman has begun to feel a little out of control. Chang Wuhan analyzed it in the team channel. As the emperor of the northern barbarians, he felt more and more that there was an invisible force beginning to restrain him. No, it should be said to be restraining Xiaolishan. But even he himself didn't know the specific situation. After Su Tong understood the situation, he became more sure of his thoughts. Free, give me the list of several tribal leaders who participated in the turmoil and massacre. Okay, just wait a moment. After all, it's hard to remember the names of these people. After waiting for about half an hour, Chang Wogu handed the list of leaders of the 8 tribes and their background information to Su Tong through the team channel. If it were the previous team, even if they had to fight their way out, they wouldn't be able to find out the mastermind behind it. Just this list would be enough. Fortunately, we have Chang Wuhan, the Dog Emperor, doing it. If you respond internally, you will be able to understand the northern barbarians thoroughly. Boss, Zhongdu is just ahead. Are we planning to go straight in? Gao Zhou looked at the list in Su Tong's hand, and his eyes became hot. This is a good opportunity to test his corpse C tactics. Especially the corpse of Dijo, the earthly immortal. Although it had just turned into a corpse, Gao Zhou was still looking forward to it in his heart. However, Su Tong shook his head instead, rummaged through the prop book to find the jack mask and threw it to Gao Zhou. Why are you so anxious? We are not robbers. Saying that, Su Tong asked Sun Li to send them down. At this time, Gao Zhou also began to wonder what Su Tong was going to do, but he had followed Su Tong for the longest time. So when I see Su Tong's face becoming more relaxed, I have to be more careful in my heart, because often at this time, this guy might be trying to hold back a big move. So with curiosity, he asked in a low voice, "Boss, what are we doing here?" "What are you doing?" "Of course I'm here to investigate the case. Let's see if we can find the hand hiding behind the scenes." Su Tong raised his head and saw that he had put on a jack mask on his face. His face also changed and became jet black, but there was only a crescent-shaped mark on his forehead, which was so white and shiny. "Boss, are you pretending to be Bao Gong?" When Gao Zhou saw this, he couldn't help but start joking. Unexpectedly, Su Tong took out a wig from somewhere, put it on his head, and made a V gesture towards Gao Zhou. "Wrong, I'm pretending to be the moon rabbit. Sorry, I have otitis media. There is a buzzing sound in my ears. I can't hear anything. I am very upset. I only have one update today. I will go to the hospital for a checkup tomorrow." Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1022. It's not unusual for Mr. Bao to have a black face, but who has ever seen a moon rabbit with a black face? What a good guy, with his bared teeth and grin. Even in broad daylight, you can make people wonder, have you met a ghost? But Su Tong didn't care about these things. After changing his makeup, he took Gao Zhou and escaped directly into Zhongdu City under the cover of night. Su Tong deliberately hid his aura. With his current cultivation level, even Xiao Lishan would not be able to detect his presence within 3 meters of him. The life icon opened, and Su Tong's eyes looked around the entire Zhongdu City. In the huge city, only the direction of the palace was in full swing, like a huge torch lighting up the dark night. That was Xiao Lishan's aura, the pinnacle of the earthly immortal, like a god. He was shining brightly when he was sitting in the palace. But this is just an appearance. In places where his aura cannot cover, it gives people a sense of suffocating darkness. Countless strange auras are hidden in the lights of thousands of houses. Su Tong took out the list given to him by Chang Wogu. After scanning it, his first target was the palace of the second room. The Prince's Palace of Room B is one of the 4 major palaces of the northern barbarians. His subordinate officials are the Daiguli Jadushi division. And the position of Daiguli Jadushi is actually the leader of each tribe. In other words, the culprit behind the massacre of the 8 prefectures this time was the imperial palace of the imperial family. "Boss, what exactly are we looking for?" Gao Zhou followed Su Tong, lowering his head as he walked, for fear that someone would see him. As an outstanding young man who grew up in the spring breeze and bathed in the new era, this was his first time for a man to dress up as a woman. "I don't know either." Su Tong waved his hand, looking innocent, which made Gao Zhou roll his eyes. But then Su Tong still revealed his purpose. Just after the Yuankai divine sect was finished, the northern barbarians immediately began to lose control. This is unreasonable. Xiao Lishan has been in charge of the northern barbarians for so many years and tried his best to avoid the situation where the 2 dragons did not meet. How could he tolerate it? These tribal leaders were so hostile to the 8 prefectures. The massacre in the land stirred up trouble and accelerated the situation where the 2 dragons met. Once the 2 dragons meet, the world will be in chaos. So I concluded that the early elimination of the Yuankai God sect must have made many people hiding behind the Yuankai God sect unable to sit still. For example, the Shangqing Dao. Which kind of great god is the Yuankai God? Or is he really an innate god as he said? I won't tell you these things for the time being. But compared to gods of the level of Shangsheng Zhenjun, Yuankai God is simply not good enough. After hearing Su Tong's analysis, Gao Zhou lowered his head and unconsciously fiddled with the corners of his skirts with both hands, and said thoughtfully, "So, is it Shangqing Dao's fault? But I have a question that I can't figure out. Why did the Supreme Lord Shangsheng go to all the trouble to fight the Heavenly Stems and the Northern Barbarians? Wouldn't it be better if he just came down and asked everyone in the world to worship him and just receive the power of faith? That's the crux of the matter." Su Tong actually couldn't understand this question, so he could only regard the answer as X for the time being. X represents the condition. He believed that the more powerful a god was, the more restrictions he would encounter if he wanted to directly intervene in the world. According to Master, the script world is actually real, a mirror world of time nodes in reality. Reality is yang, here is yin. If you want to change the original development trajectory of these worlds, you must use external forces, such as these players. Under the guidance of specific script directions and tasks, the insertion of the player variable gives these gods the conditions to directly intervene in the world. The above is the speculation made by Su Tong. So if we want to get out of the chessboard, we must first figure out what are the conditions for them to directly intervene in this world. When Su Tong said this, he pointed to the gate of the palace in front of him, so we are here to find the answer. Compared to the turmoil outside, there was singing and dancing in the prince's palace. Just listen to the sound of piano music, the dancers dance to the music, and bursts of heroic laughter can be heard from time to time. Ha ha ha, those bitter scholars in Tiangan still dream about getting the land of the 8 states. Go ahead and dream. There is not even a ghost there now. Give them the land and let's see who will farm it for them. We have even poisoned the river water. The land of the 8 states is already in ruins. It is difficult for livestock to survive. What we can't get, they can't get. The leaders of several tribes exchanged cups and cups, talking and laughing. But there were also several leaders who lowered their heads and grimaced. But I'm worried. Finally one of the leaders put down his glass, that Yang Hong won't let it go like this. The Xinhua battalion under his command is too terrifying, comparable to the rumored Taoist soldiers. If he turns around and takes revenge, we... Bang. Before he finished speaking, Eugene, the leader of the Nat tribe, threw the gold cup in his hand on the table and cursed, "What are you afraid of? If the sky falls, our king of the South Campus will be holding it up. How dare Yang Hong come in, isn't it possible to make it to Zhongdu City? He dares. If he really dares to come, we, Department B and 14, will fight with him. Yes, if he dares to come, if King Xiao doesn't take action, I think we should establish a new king." Seeing that these guys were going too far, he finally understood and snorted coldly, "How outrageous! Your Majesty has just ascended the throne, and you are talking about setting up a new king. Are you trying to shake the foundation of our northern barbarian country?" The speaker was Wanyan Bashu, the largest Shangrao tribe leader among the 14 tribes. As soon as he opened his mouth, everyone's unbridled arrogance was immediately suppressed. I only heard Wanyan Bashu say, "We are doing this not only to grudge against King Xiao, but also for the eternal foundation of the northern barbarians. If God can take over the 8 states, within 3 years, we will have abundant food and grass. I'm afraid it's dangerous." Having said this, Wanyan Bashu stroked his beard with one hand and said with a confused look on his face, "Tomorrow, we will go to court and advise King Xiao. No matter what, we must ask him to take action to kill the scourge Yang Hong. That's right. If we don't get rid of this person, we won't even be able to sleep comfortably. Everyone responded one after another, wishing to cut Su Tong into thousands of pieces. Boss, you are quite popular. Gao Zhou and Su Tong were standing not far outside the door at the moment, looking at the activities in the yard, not expecting to hear these words. Su Tong raised his head proudly, and after scanning the tribal leaders with his eyes, he noticed that the guy named Wanyan Basha sitting in front had an unusual aura lingering around him. Interesting. The corners of Su Tong's lips raised, he didn't expect to be able to catch the opponent's little tail so easily. Immediately, the life icon opened, trying to use this guy's chi to find out the man behind the scenes. However, the moment the life icon opened, the smile on Su Tong's face suddenly froze, his pupils tightened, and he stared at the people in front of him. Head. Gao Zhou noticed the subtle changes on Su Tong's face and hurriedly shouted twice. What's wrong with you? Su Tong's face became more serious. He followed Su Tong's gaze, but saw nothing. Just when Gao Zhou was confused, Su Tong suddenly grabbed his arm. Let's go. Walk. Gao Zhou was a little confused now. He didn't know which song Su Tong was singing. Wasn't he looking for evidence? Why are you leaving so suddenly? But before the two of them could turn around, they heard an angry roar coming from behind. Hey, where are you going? You've ruined my good deeds. Isn't it too late for you to leave now? Su Tong looked back after hearing this and saw Eugene, the leader of the Nat tribe, standing up suddenly as if he was drunk, his body swaying as if he would fall to the ground at any time. Seeing this, the other tribal leaders around him thought that Eugene had drunk too much and started to act drunkenly, so they hurriedly stepped forward to help him. As a result, he was pushed 5 or 6 meters away by Eugene's slap. The whites of Eugene's eyes could no longer be seen, only the huge pupils were staring out. Ha ha ha, do you think you are smart? There are many people smarter than you, but truly smart people will only adapt to the times and submit to the rule of the gods. You actually want to fight against the gods. Damn it! Damn it! Eugene's voice also began to become shrill. Everyone immediately surrounded him, trying to hold him down, but it turned out that Eugene seemed to have taken a powerful pill, and 5 or 6 people couldn't hold him down at all. Boss, is this guy crazy? Gao Zhou turned around and looked at Eugene, who was talking nonsense. He wanted to step forward and take a closer look, but Su Tong quickly held him down. Don't go over, this guy has been taken away. Taken away from home. Well, it's not just him, these people are all going to die. Su Tong lowered his voice and looked through the chi gate of life eye. He found that these people had no luck, which was a sign that their luck was about to run out and they would inevitably die. And Eugene, who looked like a madman, was even more strange. He had been taken away from his body, but he couldn't tell what exactly had taken away his body. Even the words in his mouth seemed to be speaking to himself, but in fact they were shouting aimlessly. This made Su Tong wonder if it was the one on top of the immortal who was responsible. After all, gods can see into the future. Maybe he would track it down if he saw it early, and left a trap here waiting for him. Boom. At this time, there was more and more turmoil in the palace. A maid who was carrying the plate suddenly dropped the plate on the ground, and her body began to twitch involuntarily. He, you shouldn't come back. Go and complete the mission. Get the rewards you deserve. Leaving this place is your obligation as the chosen one. The maid made a low and hoarse voice, and gradually stood up, her hands twisting irregularly in the air. As the movements became larger and larger, there were waves of twisting sounds of bones in her body. Every muscle on her face seemed to be squirming, and for a moment, her beautiful face was stretched into a straight line. He had a weird pie face, his facial features were completely misaligned, and it was indescribably weird. Such a strange scene made even a ruthless man like Gao Zhou, who was sleeping in a coffin, feel his scalp numb. What if I say no? Su Tong raised his head and looked south. Things were more difficult than he thought. Without the blessing of the god of vitality, the guy on top of the immortal could no longer sit still. After he finished speaking, a scream was heard in the hall behind. It was Wanyan's tyranny. The guy's body suddenly began to swell, and his muscles bulged up. The clothes on his body were torn off, and the white bones pierced under the skin. In the blink of an eye, this guy actually turned into a monster-like stuff. The flesh and blood on his face was torn open, and a twisted face was pieced together from the muscles in Wanyan Bashu's mouth. The empty eye sockets stared in the direction of Su Tong. Don't you understand yet? The script has begun to return to its original track. No matter whether you complete the task or not, or how much effort you make, the result is inevitable. When chaos arises, I will dominate this world. This is the rules are ironclad. The face in Wanyan Bashu's mouth began to become ferocious. Everything you have is given by the gods. Those who resist will be destined to be abandoned by the gods. Ding. At this time, Su Tong's prop book kept hearing harsh reminders. Ding. We have detected a violation on your part. Please stop immediately. Ding. Your privileges will be taken away and you will be severely punished. Please complete the main mission as soon as possible. Ding. Your behavior has touched the player's red line. As a punishment, you will receive a curse from the gods, Tianfa. Tianfa, a special curse that cannot be purified or stripped away. When the sun and moon alternate, your lifespan will pass by like a firefly. Every day in the script world, a portion of your lifespan will be deducted randomly. Hearing the prompt, even Su Tong couldn't help being surprised and shouted quickly, apply for arbitration. Sorry, the arbitration cannot pass, please contact the host. Taiwan. Su Tong tried to call out the name of the station. As the host of this script world and a shareholder of Lo Jinfang, Su Tong didn't believe that this guy dared to pretend to be dead at this time. But the response was even more disappointing. Ding. The host cannot intervene in the arbitration, please try with higher authority. Facing the continuous prompts, Su Tong could only look at the bloody face, and his expression suddenly darkened. Can't you afford it? He, enjoy it, you won't live long. The face in Wanyan Bashu's mouth let out a scream of pleasure and then gradually disappeared in front of Su Tong. And as this face disappeared, the entire palace began to riot. More and more people began to mutate, as if they were subject to a terrible curse. Their muscles and bones quickly began to tear apart, and they instantly turned into half-human, half-ghost monsters. This time, Su Tong and Gao Zhou stood in the middle, looking out of place compared to the surrounding environment. Roar! Finally, a completely alienated figure rushed towards the two of them. Su Tong flicked his fingers, and a sword beam shot out, instantly cutting the person in half. But such a move was tantamount to throwing a piece of rotten meat into the shark group. In an instant, these alienated figures rushed towards the two of them like crazy. Boss, kill him first and then talk. Seeing this, Gao Zhou could only summon zombies and start killing them. Although the strength of these alienated figures seems to have improved a lot, they are not enough in front of Gao Zhou and Su Tong. It's just that they were making too much noise. The weird roar could be heard throughout Zhongdu city. Su Tong began to feel uneasy, but before he could think about it, a fiery breath suddenly came from a distance. Xiaolishan. A wry smile appeared on Su Tong's face. That's true. The gods can peek into the future, and their actions have already been noticed by the other party. This is a trap. Thinking of this, Su Tong could only pull Gao Zhou to escape as soon as possible. But just as the two of them were about to leave, a sharp murderous aura enveloped the entire Zhongdu city. Yang Hong. Xiaolishan's voice rippled in the void with a layer of waves visible to the naked eye. In an instant, it gave people an invisible and qualityless sword energy, pressing down on Su Tong. Seeing this, Su Tong didn't dare to be careless at all, and suddenly drew out the Chunyang sword, slashing the sword into the void. Boom! There was a metallic collision sound in the empty air in front of him. At the same time, huge power struck along the blade of the sword, forcing Su Tong not to dare to hold back any more. Thoughts of pure yang appeared between his eyebrows, and the blade of the sword turned in his hand. The pure yang sword energy was like the dawn tearing apart the dark night, and the whole sky was filled with light and illuminated. This time, his figure could no longer be hidden. Pure yang Jianmang, I am afraid that this night, everyone in the world will know that he entered the central capital city at night. When Su Tong looked back, an even more bizarre scene appeared. In the palace, the alienated figure had returned to its original appearance. But some people are still alive, and some people have turned into a cold corpse. The living people only felt indescribable pain in their bodies, but they were not at all strange about the changes that had just occurred in their bodies. Looking again, in the hall, the leaders of various tribes had died suddenly on the spot. This time, it's really so muddy that I can't explain why it's reasonable. Su Tong sighed in his heart, squinted his eyes and looked ahead, and saw Xiaolishan holding the Mengtai sword, standing on the roof staring at him. When he saw the corpses in front of him, the killing intent in Xiaolishan's eyes, it got colder instantly. That. Su Tong raised his head with an innocent face. If I told you that I was just here to borrow a toilet, would you believe it? Buzz. Xiaolishan's answer was simple. The Mengtai sword in his hand made a harsh buzzing sound, followed by a dazzling cold light in front of him, which seemed to penetrate the space and penetrated the space more than 10 meters away, arriving in an instant. An inch of time. Sensing the terrifying power of this sword, Su Tong knew that explanations were useless. Between life and death, thoughts burned on his forehead, and the sword in his hand slashed away, causing the surrounding time and space to split. Even the sword light thrust by Xiaolishan seemed to slow down in this split time and space. The past cannot be changed, and countless variables are beginning to emerge in the future. Su Tong only had time to take a quick glance. The next direction was to quickly grab Gaozhou, turn around and run away. Buzzing. At the same time, Mengtai sword was already flashing with a sharp cold light, penetrating from the past to the present, and even locked the future. The sharp and piercing murderous aura pierced Su Tong's chest almost viciously. For a moment, the blood spread like the wings of a butterfly on Su Tong's chest. Surprise flashed across Su Tong's face for a moment. After glancing at Xiaolishan with his deep eyes, he immediately rushed out 1,000 meters away. Puff. As soon as he escaped from an inch of time, Su Tong couldn't help vomiting a mouthful of blood, and the clothes on his chest were almost instantly stained red with blood. Xiaolishan slashed his sword with anger, and the sword merged the world into one. Although Guanjian is strong, it only has one move and lacks stamina. Where are you going? I've let you go many times. Xiaolishan walked with his sword, his face getting more and more angry, but today, you went too far. As he spoke, he raised the blade of his sword in front of him and pointed it directly at Su Tong. This Zhongdu city is a place where you can come and leave whenever you want. Since you are here, I might as well take your life. Please stay. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1023. If you say you'll stay, you'll stay. I believe you. Today, I'll see how you keep us. When Gao Zhou heard this, he was ready to summon all his zombies, use the zombie sea tactic to push them across, and then take advantage of the chaos to escape. But Su Tong stopped Gao Zhou at this time. Don't mess around, you go first, I will stop you. Ken. Gao Zhou wanted to say something more, but Su Tong was already blinking at him. Seeing this, Gao Zhou knew that Su Tong must have other intentions in letting him go, so he glared at Xiaolishan fiercely. Master, leave now. After Gao Zhou finished speaking, He walked back swaggeringly, but from the beginning to the end, Xiao Lishan ignored Gao Zhou's intention. Not even looking at him, this feeling of being ignored by the enemy made Gao Zhou mad with depression. Although you have the power of the gods, your abilities are too poor. Xiao Lishan's eyes remained unchanged. Except for Yang Hong, it seemed that no one in the world could make him take another look. Su Tong raised his brows slightly and pointed the pure Yang sword at Xiao Lishan. The crystal pure Yang thoughts on his brows flashed brightly. Are you sure I can only use a sword? Xiao Lishan shook his head. I know you have many tricks, but this is Zhongdu City, you can see for yourself. Dong 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 dong. Just listen to the sound of drums and hammers coming from all around Zhongdu City, and the smoke rises from all sides, and the billowing smoke covers the entire sky. The smoke was rising, the drums were beating, and the city was slowly resurrecting like a giant beast that had been dormant for many years. Although there is no forbidden martial arts monument in Zhongdu, there is the ancient fighting spirit of Lanjian. The last time you came here was just a fluke. This time, do you think you can still get out? After Xiao Lishan finished speaking, Su Tong actually heard deep wolf howls in his ears. I saw smoke billowing all around, and there were countless black wolf shadows flashing inside. At the same time, his luck was greatly shaken, and Yinhu roared, as if he had been provoked by some kind. The tiger stared in all directions, forming a confrontation with these wolf figures. Ding! You have been affected by the Zhongdu Sirius formation, and your luck has been suppressed. Ding! You are affected by the ancient war spirit. The cooldown time of all skills is doubled, and the consumption is increased several times. Ding! You are disturbed by the drum sound of the Zhongdu Sirius formation, and the power of all magic skills is reduced by 45%. Continuous reminders sounded, and Su Tong immediately felt an invisible force oppressing him. Under this pressure, even the pure yang energy in his body began to become dull. The fate of the country is at stake, and the gods are retreating. The laws of the country are ruthless, just like a prison in heaven. Yang Hong, you have brought trouble to the world, used force to break the law, robbed money, killed courtiers, and disrupted the imperial court. Xiao Lishan elaborated on Su Tong's crimes. Every time he mentioned a crime, Su Tong felt like there was an extra shackle binding him in the void around him. At this time, Xiao Lishan raised the Mengtai sword in his hand, and a huge aura surged behind him. Now, you have no way to run, just confess your crime. Buzz. The moment the words fell, the sword in Xiao Lishan's hand was already stabbing, and the sword light flashed and tore through the void like lightning. Su Tong's pupils tightened. This sword strike was simple and unpretentious, but after receiving the blessing of the national destiny, it seemed to have mobilized the power of the entire world. It's not so much a sword as it is the power of this world. Xiao Lishan's cultivation is not as good as mine, but his attainments in swordsmanship have reached a level consistent with the Tao. If he takes a further step, he will combine with the Tao to break the void and soar in the daytime. Feeling the gap in swordsmanship between himself and Xiao Lishan, Su Tong's eyes became even more intense. The pure yang sword in his hand felt the surging fighting spirit in Su Tong's heart. Following the main thought in Su Tong's mind, it burst out with hot and bright light like the sun, and a huge amount of pure yang energy began to rise. When we meet on a narrow road, the brave wins, Xiao Lishan. In terms of swordsmanship, I am not as good as you, but in terms of courage, I am stronger than you. At least in the face of all the gods and demons in the sky, my sword has never retreated. Su Tong ignited his thoughts, and in an instant, the pure yang sword in his hand shone brightly. An inch of time. The blade of the sword moved, cutting through time and space. Su Tong's figure also escaped into the cracks in time and space at this moment, killing Xiao Lishan. A strange scene also appeared at this moment. Xiao Lishan stood tall in time and space, but Su Tong was outside of time and space. In this way, there was a spatial dislocation, the two figures intertwined, and those watching could only hear a rapid collision of sword blades. But no one can tell how exactly it is. Fairy, can you see clearly? On the hill next to Zongdu, a group of figures wearing cloaks were quietly watching this earth-shattering battle on Zongdu city. Under the broad cloak, there was a woman with an attractive face. Her watery eyes were staring at Zongdu in front of her, with strange light flashing from time to time in her pupils. And if Su Tong met this person, he would definitely recognize that this woman was none other than Yao Qing from Shangqing Dao. Ever since the last time Su Tong took away the thought of the supreme being that was parasitic on Yao Qing and threw her into the pit, Yao Qing disappeared from the sky. She came under orders and had already gone dormant into Zongdu city before Su Tong came to the northern barbarians. And he used his beauty to drop a divine seed in the well of the palace early. It is precisely because of the seed that the people in the imperial household of the Yi family have alienated characteristics. Yao Qing didn't know why he did this before, but he didn't expect that it turned out that Zhenjun had started planning early, just to wait for this day to come. Facing the inquiry from the old man beside her, Yao Qing shook her head, with a confused look on her face, can't see clearly. Although Yao Qing was only enlightened, her special physique allowed her to cultivate spiritual eyes. But at this time, even she could only see the situation in Zongdu city, but she wanted to see clearly the battle between Su Tong and Xiaolishan, but it can't be done. The figures of the two people have become blurred. Su Tong's figure seems to be coming from the future every time, and he can often take the lead and kill the enemy. But facing Xiaolishan, this move seemed to have failed. Xiaolishan's swordsmanship is already in harmony with this world. In his hand, the Mengtai sword bloomed with dazzling light, penetrating into the future. It not only blocked Su Tong's killing move, but also counterattacked like a rainstorm of pear blossoms. Although everyone couldn't see clearly, they could feel the suffocating pressure. This sense of oppression, even from a distance, makes people feel hopeless. Without the restraint of the vitality god, Xiaolishan doesn't even plan to hide now. The people watching the battle were not just Yao Qing and his party from Shangqing Road. In Zongdu city, a young man about the same age as Su Tong was watching the battle. This person's appearance and figure are exactly the same as the Emperor of Tianqian, but the difference is that this person is enveloped by an innate aura, and his strength is unfathomable. Sir, who can win this battle? The accompanying guard asked quietly. The young man sighed, I lost. Although I like this junior brother very much, there have been 15 moves before and after. If old Mangasu is right, if there are 3 more moves, my junior brother may not be able to hold on. When the guards heard this, their expressions were complicated for a moment. Prince Shenwu can withstand 20 moves from a figure like Xiaolishan, which is enough to stand out from the crowd. If the prince is given another 20 years, no, 10 years, maybe there is no chance of defeating Xiaolishan. As soon as these words were spoken, although the faces of the guards standing behind him were expressionless, there was still a moment of regret in their eyes. Yang Hong's rise was astonishing. After the battle at Qinwuguan and the title of Marquis, he was like a cheat. He quickly became famous all over the world and was invincible. Even the old man from Gasu ranked it 4th in the world. But he is too young. Compared with people like Xiaolishan and Su Lai who have been at the top for more than 10 years, he lacks too much. It's a pity that Xiaolishan probably won't give Yang Hong another 10 years. This makes Yang Hong destined to be reduced to a bright meteor, disappearing in the long river of history after the ultimate brilliance. Boom! At that moment, a violent bright light suddenly flashed in the sky, the 2 sword blades collided, and Su Tong's figure was forced to emerge from the future. Blood had soaked through his robes, and apart from the wound on his chest, there were 12 sword wounds of various sizes on his body. Every wound was attached to an extremely sharp sword energy. Su Tong summoned the Great Sun Ruyi furnace and injected a large amount of life essence into his body, but the wounds could never heal. The victory has been decided. When Su Tong's figure gradually became clearer, everyone already knew the answer. Sure enough, without the advantage of taking the first step in the future, Xiaolishan's sword energy was like a rainbow, and with an incredibly clever sword move, he directly knocked the Chunyang sword out of Su Tong's hand. Facing the flaw in his facade, Xiaolishan's face showed neither joy nor sadness, and his deep eyes reflected Su Tong's cheek. This sword is called destiny. Puff. Accompanied by the cold voice, the Meng Tai sword in Xiaolishan's hand made an excited sword cry, and he aimed it at Su Tong's chest and slashed it down. The blood splashed down like rain for a while, and Su Tong's body looked more like it was broken. The kite fell heavily to the ground. Roar. In the sky, Yinhu screamed and was knocked to the ground by countless evil wolves. It seemed like it was about to be submerged under the teeth and claws of the wolf. Xiaolishan jumped down and looked at Su Tong, who had been severely injured. His voice was unusually cold. The state has national laws, and every family has family rules. Yang Hongren, you are a half-step god, but no matter how great you are, you can't beat the national laws. Xiaolishan's words seemed to follow his words. The huge national destiny crushed down, like a cold chain, suppressing Su Tong again. He was unable to move for a moment. After Xiaolishan said this, he took out a piece of edict from his sleeve. Break into the sky prison, Kaiu Hao will ask and behead her. Rumble. For a moment, the sky thundered like a hammer, and the 8 words seemed to hit people's hearts. Xiaolishan then summoned the soldiers and asked them to send Su Tong to the heavenly prison. At this moment, Su Tong was imprisoned by the national law, and his luck fell into a low ebb. The sword energy on the wound was like an iron nail, piercing into his flesh and blood. He could only watch helplessly as these barbarian soldiers dragged him towards the prison. Feeling the master leaving, the Chunyang sword let out an angry cry. Xiaolishan waved his hand and grabbed the Chunyang sword in his hand. The sword trembled violently, but was finally suppressed by Xiaolishan. A good sword, but he can't use it now. After speaking, Xiaolishan threw the sword back and nailed it to the city wall. Damn it, old Chang, hurry up and come here. If you don't come, you won't be able to catch the last blow. Gaozhou, who had escaped from Zhongdu City in the distance, left a zombie in Zhongdu City before leaving. Through the eyes of the zombie, he saw the scene of Su Tong being defeated. His face turned pale for a moment, and he wanted to call Chang Wuju. Let's find a way to rescue Su Tong first. But after he finished speaking, he heard Su Tong's lazy voice coming from the team channel. Don't mess around, this is a friendly force. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1024. There is a kind of friendly army called Love You and Cut You with 14 swords. Not everyone can afford this friendship. In fact, Su Tong had a surprised look on his face when he cut himself with the first sword when he came from Xiaolishan. That sword was enough to severely injure him, and even with Xiaolishan's methods, he could pursue the victory and kill himself with one sword. But Xiaolishan didn't do this. Instead, he deliberately let the sword edge deflect by a hair. A slight difference, and the result is thousands of miles away. Su Tong then asked Gaozhou to go first, while Xiaolishan ignored Gaozhou. The two had already reached a tacit understanding. So, this battle between you and Xiaolishan is just acting. Although Gaozhou couldn't clearly see the detailed process of Su Tong and Xiaolishan's action, the two men obviously had serious intentions in this battle. Su Tong's thoughts were burning, and he directly burned a large amount of himself in the special state of maintaining an inch of time. Thoughts? Now, apart from Su Tong's main thought being intact, the original 18 split thoughts have been consumed and only 3 are left. It can be seen that in this battle, it would be too arbitrary to say that the two were just having fun. No, I almost used all my strength. When Su Tong said this, he couldn't help but feel a little frustrated. There was a huge difference in strength between the two, especially in the field of swordsmanship. He relied on an inch of time and the blessing of divine thoughts to barely maintain the result of a draw with Xiaolishan. As old Mangasu said, although he is qualified to fight Xiaolishan, he only has this qualification. But Xiaolishan did not let go, and struck him with more than 10 swords in a row, and each sword put him in danger. Xianyuan Shield, Vajra Divine Power, Vajra Seal. Title Skill, Chapter of Killing, Enhanced Version. Title of Venerable, Kasiddhagarbha Sutra. Su Tong almost threw out all the means, such as the golden body of Buddhism and so on. But Xiaolishan's sword seemed to have terrible magic power. Every time he could find a breakthrough in the gaps in his sword skills, and hit himself with the sword. If it weren't for his red dragon gold crystal armor and physical dragon scales, he wouldn't be able to hold on at all. This is the price of the cooperation between the two, and it is the basic condition for whether Su Tong can become Xiaolishan's partner. If he can't hold on, then Xiaolishan will kill him. For him, it's just one less opponent, no big deal. On the other hand, Xiaolishan gave himself the sword wound as a reward for his cooperation. Don't underestimate these wounds, each wound contains a sword intent. Although it prevented the healing of his own wounds, it also left Su Tong with valuable experience. As long as you think carefully, digest it, and completely absorb the remaining sword intent, your swordsmanship will be able to reach a higher level. After hearing Su Tong's story, Gao Zhou and others were speechless. Gu Zibai said, "He is teaching you swordsmanship in disguise? Why? This guy should kill you and then hurry up. After all, you have caused such misery to the northern barbarians, and you are also accused of killing the prince of the second family. It's simple, he wants to break the situation." Su Tong felt that they were misled by the script in hand. No, it should be said that they were misled by the information brought by the previous team. Neither Xiaolishan nor Su Lai are their enemies, because their goal from the beginning was not them, and they want to get out of this chessboard and out of the control of the gods behind them more than themselves. So the two are actually very good partners. Just being in the game, they have to move along the direction of the script. The gods need variables to achieve the conditions, and Su Lai and Xiaolishan also need variables to break free from their shackles. And there is no doubt that he is the variable they need. So that's how it is. But if you want to cooperate, then just cooperate. Why make it so complicated? Gao Zhou complained in a low voice. Seeing that Su Tong was defeated, he was about to rush into Zhongdu city to save people. It has to be done. Su Tong sighed, fighting the gods head-on was too passive. They can know the future variables at any time and make plans in advance. Every move they make will be observed by the gods on top of the immortal. If Xiaolishan showed mercy today, others would have noticed it a long time ago. This is why Xiaolishan must attack him, and do it ruthlessly. If he cannot survive this level, he will not be qualified to cooperate with them. Scare. Hearing Su Tong's explanation, Gao Zhou and others were silent. Li Bo listened in the team channel and couldn't help but ask, "Then the gods know everything and can see into the past and the future, how can we fight? Don't everyone know? Is it the result?" No. The past cannot be changed, and the future cannot be trusted. Even gods can't do anything about it. They are omniscient and omnipotent. There will always be some blind spots that affect change that they cannot see. With the blessing of an inch of time, Su Tong has a deeper understanding of time and space, and now the blind spot has appeared, within himself. But the only thing that troubled him was the curse on him, Tianshui. Losing the privilege is my Yinhu destiny. A big loss, but acceptable. But the curse of Tianshui is very troublesome. It is as fatal as the 5 declines of heaven and man. Rao has the body of an earthly immortal, and his lifespan is limited. Part of his lifespan is randomly deducted every day, which is a great threat to him. We need to find a way to break this curse. It seems that we need to find an opportunity to go back to Master and the others to see if there is any way. Su Tong raised his head. He had been thrown directly into the death row by these rough barbarians. There was only a hole in the dark room that was less than the size of a palm. At this moment, a faint light has begun to rise outside the cave, and the time for the sun and moon to alternate has arrived. Su Tong also immediately felt a very bad aura on his body, as if a hand was grabbing at him from somewhere. Suddenly, a prompt sounded from the props book. Ding! The curse of decay has taken effect, and you will be deducted 3. Kaka kaka. Su Tong Ben was still waiting quietly for the result of this curse, but before the sound of the prompt ended, it suddenly turned into a harsh noise. Then a strange aura surged out of the prop book. Ding! The special prop book of Life and Death passive skill 2 has no name, and there is a conflict with the judgment result. The judgment is in progress. Passive skill 2, unknown person. Those who hold the book of life and death will not reveal their own destiny, cannot check it unless it is the original book, and cannot change it unless it is the original book. Su Tong was startled, then suddenly remembered the book of life and death given to him by his master. He was suddenly startled and quickly called out the prop book to take a look. In the props book, the cover of the book of life and death seemed to be stimulated by something, exuding a cold and evil aura that enveloped his body. It was as if he was contending with the invisible hand in the dark. The prop book was like a little daughter-in-law caught in the middle, being pulled left and right by two forces and began to tremble violently. Determining, determining, determining. At the same time, in the script library, Mr. Tai, who was grimacing, was sitting on a chair in the room, drinking and cursing. Warn me? What does it have to do with me? I always act according to the rules. These rules are not set by you. It's inexplicable. As the host of this script world, after Su Tong was reminded of the violation, he immediately received the news from Su Tong applying for arbitration. As a result, before he could accept the arbitration, he was hit with a warning. It was obvious that a higher-level god was prohibiting him from accepting arbitration. The reason is that Su Tong and others violated regulations. As a subordinate of their script library, I also received a very severe warning as the director. But the strange thing is that when he applied to view the illegal content, the content actually blocked him because his authority level was not enough. This made Mr. Tai very depressed, but he had nothing to say, because after Su Tong's application for arbitration last time, he came back from the Infinite Sea, and his power level was indeed reduced. Just when Mr. Tai was feeling depressed, the crystal ball watching the script suddenly turned red. Mr. Tai was startled, and quickly got up and walked over to take a look. Suddenly, a warning like snowflakes appeared in front of him on the crystal ball. Hiss. I'm afraid this kid is acting like a monkey. How come he doesn't stop after a while? Looking at the warning message in front of him, Mr. Tai's head was filled with confusion. He clicked it and took a closer look. When he saw that it was the simplest basic conflict, he breathed a sigh of relief. It's okay, it's not a big deal. Having said this, Mr. Tai's white eyelashes gradually covered his eyes. He glanced at the top of his head and couldn't help cursing in his heart. Didn't you let me make the decision? Why didn't you warn me? Humph, you bully the weak and fear the strong. No wonder the Taiwan Council despises the managers above. In fact, it's not that they don't know, it's that they don't want to take care of it. The Book of Life and Death is a very important thing in the underworld, even if it is just a copy. God knows how Su Tong got this thing, but it is certain that Hades must be involved behind it. The people above didn't want to offend the underworld, nor did they want to offend the great patron, the true Lord Shang Sheng, so they left the mess on themselves. Since you don't care, then don't blame me. Tai is not afraid of offending others. He has already reached this point, so he might as well hug Hades' thigh tightly in one breath. Even if he can't hug his thigh, it doesn't matter. After all, when it comes to one's own interests and the interests of others, individuals will choose the former. Thinking of this, Tai lay on the crystal ball and started to operate crazily. Following Mr. Tai's fair and conscientious operation, Su Tong finally got new news. The judgment is completed. There is a huge conflict between Tian Shui and the Book of Life and Death. After a compromise between the two, the judgment is as follows. The prop Book of Life and Death passive skill, unknown, successful judgment, curse Tianfa invalid. The judgment of the curse Sky Decay is invalid. As compensation, upon the judgment of the host, the player will be given a chance to make a privileged choice again. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1025. See the new message prompted by the prop book. Su Tong suddenly realized that the blind spot in his body seemed to be not as big as usual. Not only did the effect of Tianfa fail to work, but it gave me a chance to choose my privilege again. Tai, the shareholder, finally didn't give it in vain, but the Book of Life and Death has a greater effect. Could it be said that the master had anticipated this day when he gave the Book of Life and Death to himself? Su Tong thought about it and felt that it was not impossible. Regardless of the master's final cultivation level, he only stayed at the level of Grand Master, but he inherited the destiny and ended the decadent old era. Based on this alone, the merits of the master can be said to be immeasurable. In addition, he is valued by Du Ziren and is taken special care of. Du Ziren even lent his dragon robe and imperial crown to the master. This shows how much treatment the master has received. Hi. Although he is not a ghost or god, he enjoys privileges that many great gods do not have, and he can supervise yin and yang. So it's hard to tell clearly how deep the water on master's body is. Ding. Please choose the privileges in this script world. Please note that you only have 3 minutes to consider. If it times out, it will be randomly selected from the 3 privileges. At this time, 3 privileged options appeared in front of Su Tong. Earth Blessing, get the blessing of mountains, rivers, and earth, temporarily increase all attributes by 50%, and reduce all damage received by 30%. Martial Crown, when you hold the position of military attaché, your luck will be increased. The higher the official position, the higher the improvement. In response to the calamity, live in response to the calamity and die in the end. If you choose this privilege, the stronger your luck is, the stronger your blessings will be. Similarly, the worse your luck will be, all kinds of retribution will follow. Looking at the 3 privilege options in front of him, Su Tong instinctively wanted to choose Wu Guan because his official position and title could bring him the greatest luck bonus. Without Yinhu's fate, maybe this is a good choice. But after he carefully examined the 3 privileges, Su Tong finally locked his eyes on Yingji's option. Although Wu Guan is good, he is ultimately controlled by others. Either Su Lai or Zhao Meng is not committed to him. In the end, they will turn against each other. All they need is an imperial edict, and all their luck will be turned into waste. After thinking about it, Su Tong's mind was like lightning, and he had already made his choice in a moment. Ding. You have chosen the privilege year tribulation. Ding. Your luck is currently at a low point, please be careful. After the choice was over, Su Tong felt uncomfortable all over. Ordinarily, choosing Yingji at this time was not a wise choice. After all, you are in prison and at the lowest point in your life. At this time, anything bad will happen. But there is no way to enhance your luck, at least it is not difficult for you. Josie. Su Tong muttered Qiao Qian's name silently, and the prop card Qiao Qian's blessing was activated, and a holy light seemed to penetrate the stone wall of the cell and shine on Su Tong's cheek. Active Skill 1, Josie's Kiss of Blessing. It consumes 200 script points. After activation, you will receive a blessing kiss from Josie, and then receive a random blessing buff. Duration, 24 hours. Cooling time, 7 days. The holy light shone on Su Tong's cheek, and a woman's face gradually became clear in the hazy light. Her eyes met each other, and a familiar feeling emerged spontaneously. I need your help. How big is Su Tong's blind spot? I'm afraid even the Supreme Lord Shang Shen would not have thought that all aspects were involved behind this guy's back. In addition to the underworld represented by the Master, there are also script hosts like Taiwan, there are also demons from heaven, and even. Su Tong looked at his heart. Although the heart was no longer there, he believed that the beauty from hell would not mind treating him to a feast if needed. As if she heard Su Tong's request, Qiao Qian closed her eyes, held Su Tong's forehead with both hands, and kissed her gently. You have Josie's blessing, the silent blessing. Blessing of silence, you will be silent next. The longer you remain silent, the better your luck will be. If you can persist for 48 hours, you will get a huge increase in luck. What a weird blessing. Fortunately, I'm in prison now and don't need to speak at all. He simply closed his eyes and rested his mind, focusing on feeling the sword wounds on his body. This was a gift given to him by Xiao Lishan. Every wound was obtained with his own blood. Soon, the news that Prince Xinwu broke into Zhongdu at night and killed more than a dozen tribal leaders in the palace of Prince Bi had spread throughout the world. As soon as the news came out, the world was in an uproar. Some people clapped their hands and applauded, admiring Yang Hong's conduct as a man, and grudges with pleasure were exactly what a man would do. But when they learned that Yang Hong and Xiao Lishan fought in Zhongdu city and were eventually captured and sentenced to death by Xiao Lishan, everyone was shocked and felt a bit sad in their hearts. How powerful is Xiao Lishan? Even Yang Hong was defeated. According to the news, during the battle that day, the two men's methods were like ghosts and gods, beyond human boundaries. When old Mangasu learned the result, he felt regretful in his gut. He had known that Yang Hong would go to Zhongdu and start a killing spree, so he would have followed anyway. Now that he had missed a big battle, it was too late to regret. While people lamented and lamented the story of Yang Hong, who avenged the people of the 8 prefectures and ended up in prison, another voice appeared in Tianqin's court at this moment. First, there was a letter from the imperial censor, scolding Yang Hong. It is said that Yang Hong brought disaster to the country and the people, and acted on his own whim. This was not a blessing from heaven, but a disaster from heaven. Subsequently, the civil servant group collectively submitted a letter asking Su Qiaozu to remove Yang Hong from his title and official position, and to recall 3,000 Xinwu troops as soon as possible. The more outrageous people also proposed that Su Lai should inform the world and remove Yang Hong from Tianqin's military status. No matter whether he is dead or alive, he will not be allowed to set foot in Tianqian territory for the rest of his life. These words are tantamount to arousing thousands of waves throughout the sky. Even the people in Linan Prefecture started to curse after hearing the news. Tiangan had been defeated for so many years, and finally a Yang Hong came out to make them feel proud, but the adults in Tiangan's court actually stabbed him in the back. Those officials who were military generals immediately lost their composure when they heard the news. Yang Hong's prestige in the military had long exceeded people's expectations. Especially after offering his head at Linan Gate, he won the favor of all the soldiers in the army. He immediately started arguing with these civil servants. But they were too stupid to talk to these civil servants. According to the opinions of these civil servants, the massacre in the 8 prefectures had already occurred, and Tianqian was not in a hurry to take revenge. At present, the Tianjian states are either famine or disaster years. Once there is a war, the people will definitely be in dire straits. Moreover, the northern barbarians had just suffered a huge defeat and lost the territory of the 8 provinces. After letting them vent their anger, They settled down and waited a few years for Tianqian to gather enough strength before sending out troops to take revenge. There must be a great victory. But Yang Hong's actions at this time were like turning the northern barbarians into an iron plate. The northern barbarians had already begun to raise troops and might go south for revenge at any time. These officials talk about the future of the world, and what they say is reasonable and well-founded, but in their words they already treat the people of the world as nothing. Even though they say that they must think about the people of the world, their calculations in their hearts are louder than anyone else's. In the end, this farce was finalized under the auspices of Su Lai. Su Lai said a lot at the meeting, which was the same as the school leaders saying a few words. Putting aside the long nonsense, in summary, there are only 2 words: start the war. Those stationed outside Yangzhou city began to gather and move toward the border. However, the question of the coach has never been resolved. Rumors have begun to say that Su Lai may take charge personally. Things are developing in the direction mentioned by Shang Sheng Zhenjun, and the war is about to break out. Su Tong was lying quietly on death row, spending his time in desolation. More than a month passed in the blink of an eye. Ever since he was sent to death row, Su Tong had been lying on the ground in the same posture, neither shouting nor cursing. He was so quiet that one suspected that there was no one in the cell. Occasionally, guards passing by the death row door would check to see if Su Tong was still alive. Sometimes, seeing that he was motionless, he would want to kick him a few times to show off his power. But the strange thing is that the jailer who did this died tragically and inexplicably in the Sky prison almost that night. According to eyewitnesses, the jailers seemed to be possessed before their death, muttering incomprehensible words and telling everyone they met that they saw fairies. Then he cut open his chest with a knife, dug out his heart and held it up high. The sight of blood sparkling scared the other jailers half to death. From then on, almost no one with a blind eye dared to approach the death row where Su Tong was. Even patrols will deliberately avoid this cell. In their perception, this place seems to have become an unspeakable place. Of course, sometimes, it's not okay if they don't come. For example, today, someone named him and wanted to go to the Sky prison to see Yang Hong. It was Prince 11's mansion, one of the 4 royal families, who specially sent someone here. What was strange was that he seemed to have brought a woman along with him. A group of people stood outside the cell, looking at the filthy figures in the cell. The woman took out 2 talismans and stuck them on the cell door. The accompanying old man from Prince 11's mansion shook his head and let out a gloomy laugh. When he walked out of the cell, he bluntly said that his popularity had been exhausted, his luck had collapsed, and he was already about to die. This old man was a staff member of Prince 11's mansion. He was once a well-known scholar and knew the art of fortune-telling. His words further confirmed that this old man was the Prince of Xinwu who once single-handedly made the entire northern barbarians tremble. Has reached the end of its rope. No. It's not Prince Xinwu, it should be Marquis Xinwu. Tianqian has taken away the title of Prince Yang Hong and reduced him to a marquis again. It is said that it was only after the emperor wrote many letters to Su Lai that Su Lai changed his mind and did not completely deprive him of his title. Humph, I deserve it? I just waited until autumn to ask Jean. Isn't it too slow? The woman hated Yang Hong so much that she wanted to cut him into pieces right now. Haha, why should the fairy be angry? He is already about to die. Queen Qiu wants to kill him. It is King Xiao who kills him according to the laws of the country. It is enough to make him lose his soul and never be reincarnated. The old man said with a smile, actually, it's not much more than a few days later. The front line will soon start preparing for the war. King Xiao is afraid that he wants to wait for the war to be settled before beheading Yang Hong. By then, the world will return to its heart and no one will dare to cause trouble again. Forget it, let him survive for a few days. There is one more thing. When I came here, the mistress of the Su family said that she wanted me to help kill a person. This person is hiding in Shaolin at the moment. It is not convenient for me to take action. Please ask Prince Eleven's mansion to help. The person the fairy is talking about must be Su La's eldest son Su Fan. This matter is quite simple. Tomorrow we will report to the emperor and list this person as a wanted criminal. Even the divine monk Gozang will no longer be able to protect him. In that case, thank you to Prince Eleven's mansion. Shangqing Dao will definitely repay this favor. The group of people gradually moved away, but little did they know that in the cell, Su Tong's slightly drooped eyelids had opened a gap at some point, and he was staring at the backs of the group of people. After these people walked away, Su Tong, who was lying on the ground, turned out to sit up straight. Even though he was covered in mud, no one noticed that most of the wounds on his body had already healed. In the darkness, Su Tong's eyes were clear and waveless, and he looked at the top of his head. He saw that the luck above him was at its peak, which was already a sign of a hidden dragon coming out of the abyss. During this time, he would inspire Josie's blessing every 7 days. Josie's blessings are very strange. Each time there are certain conditions. In addition to being unable to speak, he also has strange conditions such as being unable to open his eyes, unable to sleep, unable to go to the toilet, etc. But as long as you complete these strange conditions, your luck will increase a lot. As for the old man who just couldn't see his luck, it wasn't because the old man wasn't good at learning, but because Su Tong deliberately hid his luck. Hiding luck is something that cannot be done to others, but it is the easiest thing to do on one's own side. One of the conditions for Taiwan to invest in Lo Jinfang is a fragment of source. Absorbing this fragment, I gained a new ability carrier, from Volume 14, Chapter 4. Carrier. Passive Skill 1, Carrier. Those who carry it and move forward are always in trouble, commanding the heaven and earth. Active Skill 1, Intercepting Luck. Consuming 1/3 of your own script points and 1/10 of your lifespan, you can forcibly cut off the target's luck and devour it. Cooling time, none. Active Skill 2, Hidden Luck. Spend 500 script points to cover up, modify and disguise your own luck. Duration, 28 days. Cooling time, none. Note, those who serve heaven go with heaven, and those who carry heaven go against heaven. With the help of the ability of the person who carries the luck, as long as he takes the initiative to hide, even the Supreme Lord will not be able to detect his changes. What's more, this old man is only in the realm of Taoism. He wants to see the change in Su Tong's luck at this moment. Is nothing more than a fool's dream. Are the two sides going to start fighting so soon? It looks like I need to speed up. Su Tong took a look at the sword wounds on his body. There were 14 sword wounds in total. During this period of time, he had only comprehended half of them, leaving 7 sword intentions. Each of these 7 sword intentions is very profound, and it will definitely take a lot of time for me to understand them. And even if he digests all these sword intentions, he can only gain a preliminary understanding. If you want to improve your sword skills, you not only need to understand all the sword intentions in your body, but you also need to integrate them and create more powerful sword skills. Knowing that time was limited, Su Tong did not dare to delay. He called up the team channel and asked Gao Zhou and others about their current situation. After confirming that everyone was following the script and that no accidents occurred, Su Tong immediately lay down on his back. Come down and continue to feel Xiaolishan's sword intention left on him. Xiaolishan's swordsmanship is very strange. We do not pursue the ingenuity of the moves, nor do we deliberately pursue changes in artistic conception, but are meticulous and as delicate as the silent rain. Therefore, his sword intention sometimes feels very small as a piece of grass, a flower, or even a drop of water. But as his understanding becomes deeper and deeper, Su Tong feels in his heart the greatness of Xiaolishan's swordsmanship. From small to deep, from deep to big. When Su Tong was comprehending the meaning of the sword, he sometimes felt that he had a delicate feeling a second ago, but when he looked back and relived it, he actually felt that it was unattainable. It's like walking in the mountains and forests, seeing the grass, trees, streams, and strange scenery in the mountains. But to see the whole mountain, you have to climb to the top of the mountain. Sure enough, no one's success comes easily. If Xiaolishan hadn't taught these things to him personally, I don't know how long it would have taken for him to understand them. Unconsciously, another half-month passed before Su Tongke finally absorbed the last sword intent completely. But as he said, that alone is not enough. These sword intentions gathered in Su Tong's mind and turned into a bright light, but he himself turned into a butterfly. No matter how he flew, he could only dance under the light. Once he left the light, he would immediately turn into ashes. For a moment, a strong sense of despair came over him. As Xiaolishan said, his swordsmanship was called destiny. No matter how powerful he is, he can't fly out of the range of this beam of light, and he can't escape his own destiny. Even if Su Tong is like this, restarting the script and trying it again, the ending seems to be doomed. It turns out that when you taught me swordsmanship, you wanted to tell me not to follow your old path again. Su Tong could feel the reluctance in Xiaolishan's heart, but after thinking for a moment, Su Tong's eyes gradually became firmer, and the thumping heartbeat in his chest was as powerful as a drum hammer. Every time Kakiao's delicate heart beats, Su Tong's thoughts become clearer. The stone slab Yanzioki gave him flashed through his heart, and the ingenuity of seeing the big from the subtle in Xiaolishan's 14 swords flashed across his mind. These two completely different sword intentions gradually merged together in his heart. In an instant, Su Tong's mind was refreshed, as if he had caught something, and he slowly stretched out his palm. Within the light cone is destiny, a destiny you cannot escape. But I don't know that there is another saying, which is to prepare for a rainy day. Thinking of this, Su Tong felt something in his heart, and an unprecedented strange sword technique began to emerge in his mind. Compared with Su Tong's enlightenment while lying down, the rest of the team was very busy, even running around and working hard. In the wilderness, Gu Zibai sat on a large blue stone, holding a bowl of dragon rice porridge in one hand and a meat pie in the other, eating with gusto. Over the past month or so, I have lost a lot of weight, but the murderous aura in my body is terrifying. He was originally a saint in martial arts, but now he is infected with the murderous aura tempered on the battlefield. As long as he stands there, he gives people the feeling of a murderous god coming to earth. As for how many he killed, he didn't know, but after he completed the main mission, he got a reminder that the killing star had entered the palace. Hundreds of people must be killed every day, otherwise luck will plummet. This made Gu Zibai feel that this mission was like a trap, forcing him to continue killing around the northern barbarians. Lao Bai, please take it easy. I'm really afraid that one day my uncle won't be able to bear you anymore and will go directly to find you. Chang Wenzi's lazy voice came from the team channel. On my desk, there is news about you attacking and killing tribes every day. If I hadn't suppressed it, you would be in trouble now. Oh, the people in Prince Eleven's mansion seem to have moved. They probably sent experts and elites. No, I know whether I should go for you or for Su Fan of Shaolin Temple. Gu Zibai just nodded numbly to this, but his eyes were like a lion with red eyes, scanning the jungle in front of him with eager eyes, as if he was still thinking about where to kill next. Nothing, you dog emperor, what treasures should be buried with you? I dug up all your ancestral graves, but I didn't find any treasures. Gao Zhou yelled and cursed. It turned out that since he and Su Tong separated, he had nothing to do. Chang Wogu simply gave him a map with the imperial mausoleum of the northern barbarian emperor marked on it. Not only was the northern barbarian emperor inside, there were also the ancestral tombs of the Yellow family's ancestors. This was a great opportunity to make a fortune, but it was only after Gao Zhou dug in that he discovered that the inside was filled with scrap copper, scrap iron, and worthless ceramic jars. Then keep digging. If that doesn't work, dig the graves of my father and grandfather. If that doesn't work, go dig the ancestral graves of my uncle's family. There will definitely be something good. Chang Wuzi really did everything possible for the so-called treasures. He had a strong feeling that if he couldn't search for as many treasures as possible now, he would definitely regret it in the future. Come on, I'll keep digging and see, but please don't let me do this kind of thing that damages your morality in the future. My son is about to be born, and I don't want to give birth to a son without sex. Then hurry up. We don't have much time. At the end of this month at the latest, the northern barbarians will begin to march towards Tiangan. Several families have gone crazy and given away all their cattle, sheep, and young people. Come out, Xiaolishan can't delay it for too long. In fact, Chang Wuju himself was not relaxed either. Xiaolishan had to take charge of military affairs, so state affairs fell on him, and he also had to supervise the construction of the Yuankai chariot. In order to rebuild the Vitality chariot this time, Xiaolishan emptied almost all the funds from the treasury. The specifications of the Vitality chariot are much larger than before. No, it shouldn't be called such a crude name as the Vitality chariot. Chang Wuge gave this thing a new name, called the Sun God ship.